Chapter 523. After listening to Mei Er's description of what happened today, Wang Sheng sighed in the Marquis's residence. The emperor is still a smart person who can listen to words. He could listen to words and use this opportunity to manage the image of the royal family, to be so perfect and lofty. He was not someone that the headstrong Duke Song could compare with. What do you think will happen to the guys who came to make trouble today? Mei was very excited. This was her first real estate. It was a good start. Since returning to the residence, Mei had been in this state of excitement. If stewardly deals with it, they will probably die. Wang Sheng thought about it and answered, "What if the emperor decides to punish you?" Mei continued to ask, "If the emperor deals with it, they will probably live." Wang Sheng answered quickly. Without waiting for Mei to ask why, Wang Sheng began to explain, "I've said it before. The current emperor is a smart man. He won't destroy a few loyal ministers and princes just because of a business deal. At most, he will punish them. He can avoid death, but he won't be able to escape punishment. If you knew this, you should have put a killing formation on the emperor's sword so that the emperor will have the thought of dominating the world when he holds it in his hand." Hearing that the guys who made trouble would not die, Mei was obviously unhappy and could not help but mutter. Thinking of the formation on the brush, paper, and inkstone she used, she could not help but think of the emperor's sword. Don't. If there is such a formation on the emperor's sword, will the world still be peaceful? Wang Sheng was shocked by Mei Er's crazy idea. Let's not talk about whether the emperor will be willing to let his emotions be controlled by a formation. Even if he is willing, the people around him will not dare to let him use it casually. A son of heaven who wants to dominate the world at any time will bring disaster to everyone. Mei was not a fool. After thinking for a moment, she understood the key point. She opened her mouth and patted her chest, making a frightened expression. This made Wang Sheng unable to move his eyes away, which made Mei happy for quite a while. Uncle Su, who lived across the street, was so powerful that he and Wang Sheng could persuade the emperor to write a signboard for them. Mei decided to invite Uncle Su and his wife to visit her house and entertain them well. When he mentioned it to Wang Sheng immediately rejected it. The training room of the Marquis Manor was still in ruins. It was not appropriate to entertain them like this. If there was anything, he should go find them. In any case, Uncle Su and his wife were very hospitable hosts. Mei didn't realize that this was just an excuse from Wang Sheng. She nodded happily. The next morning, when the emperor's announcement was still fresh and exciting, 3 young men were already kneeling in front of Qian Xingyuan's entrance. If someone had come to watch the show yesterday, they would definitely recognize that these 3 people were the arrogant and insufferably arrogant crown prince of Changshan and the 2 sons of the ministers who insisted on using 10 gold coins to get 90% of the shares. Yesterday's announcement by the emperor shocked the entire court. Many of the ministers didn't know about it in advance and were caught unprepared. However, it was fortunate that this was a virtuous government. The ministers cheered for the emperor. The royal family was willing to use real gold and silver to buy tributes from the palace. This was the emperor's benevolence and the royal family's good reputation. However, the ministers were not affected and they were happy. However, there was one thing that was related to the ministers. It was the opening of Qian Xingyuan's business. If it was just ordinary stationery that was not copied, no one would take a second look. However, it was said that there was a grandmaster's custom-made product inside. They had to take a look. Although many of the ministers were disdainful of those craftsmen, it didn't mean that they didn't like the works of those grandmasters. People were people and works were works. They were very clear on the difference. Grand Secretary Zhou Yuanliang was one of them. He was already over 60 years old, but he had cultivated since he was young. Although his cultivation wasn't high, and he wasn't like those experts who could easily reach the 4th or 5th stage, he was still considered to have a high cultivation among the scholars, even though he was only at the beginning stage of the 3rd stage. In particular, the spirit he had fused with was special, and his body was outstanding. Although he was 60 years old, he looked like he was at most in his 40s. After the morning court session, Grand Secretary Zhou ordered his servants to bring him to Qian Xingyuan. He couldn't wait to see what the so-called Grandmaster's custom-made product was like. Although many people didn't think that some stationery could be used as an article, Grand Secretary Zhou was different. During the morning court session, he saw the emperor's sword on the emperor's body. Because of his spirit, Grand Secretary Zhou's eyesight was much better than that of the other ministers. Once he saw the sword, he realized that it was extraordinary. The top-notch craftsmanship made Grand Secretary Zhou completely immersed himself in it. If the works that Qian Xingyuan took out were all of this level, Grand Secretary Zhou definitely couldn't miss such a good opportunity. Before the ministers could react, before Qian Xingyuan's reputation spread, and before people knew the name of the things inside Qian Xingyuan, Grand Secretary Zhou would grab one if he could. If he could grab two, he would grab a pair. After hurrying to Qian Xingyuan, Grand Secretary Zhou relaxed when he saw that there weren't many people lingering at the street entrance. He could still seize the initiative. Grand Secretary Zhou didn't even look at the 3 young people kneeling at the entrance. He pretended not to see them, saving them some face. As soon as the servant came forward to register, Qian Xingyuan's shopkeeper, Uncle Lu, immediately came out to welcome him. Qian Xingyuan had already obtained a name list of the important ministers in the capital. A great scholar like Grand Secretary Zhou, who was skilled in both calligraphy and painting, was definitely a first-class guest. However, Grand Secretary Zhou's good mood started to decrease when he passed by Qian Xingyuan's front yard. This was because he saw the servant of his archenemy resting in the front yard. In other words, Grand Secretary Zhou might have arrived a little earlier than him. The servant was drinking tea and resting outside. It looked like he had already gone in for a while. Grand Secretary Zhou hurriedly quickened his steps and came to the central hall. As expected, as soon as he entered the door, he saw the old fellow that he disliked the most, Qi Yongning, sitting in front of the desk. He held a white brush in his hand and was about to start writing. Qi Yongning was another great scholar. His school of thought was different from Grand Secretary Zhou's, and they often opposed each other. However, there was one thing that Grand Secretary Zhou was very proud of. Even though Qi Yongning could argue with him on an equal footing, Qi Yongning was inferior to him in calligraphy. This was the case for both the old seal script and the current popular regular script. However, old Qi's condition was a little different today. As soon as Grand Secretary Zhou entered the door and saw old Qi's sitting posture, he sensed that something was wrong. It wasn't that old Qi's condition wasn't good, but rather that it was so good that Grand Secretary Zhou couldn't believe that it was really old Qi. Grand Secretary Qi sat in front of the desk in a state of concentration, as still as a mountain. He dipped the brush in the ink and picked it up. His movements were calm and unhurried. The moment he started writing, Grand Secretary Zhou's heart skipped a beat. Just by looking at old Qi's current spirit, energy, and spirit, he would probably be able to write a superb stroke of calligraphy once he put down the brush. Chapter 5:24. As expected, even though Grand Scholar Qi's writing was bad in the past, it was as if God had helped him today. As soon as the brush descended, it didn't stop at all, and it carried an air of confidence as it swung down. One big character was written to his heart's content, as if he hadn't had enough. Grand Scholar Qi looked at his writing and couldn't help but nod his head in satisfaction. A pretty maid serving the writing brush and ink by the side didn't dare make a sound when the Grand Scholar Qi was writing. When the Grand Scholar Qi finished writing, she opened her mouth and said, "Good." What could make the Grand Scholar Qi feel more satisfied than this? Adding a fragrance to his sleeves and praising him in a tender voice. Grand Scholar Qi lowered his head and admired his calligraphy carefully. He felt that this was the best comment he had ever made among all the characters he had written in his life. He looked left and right, as if he couldn't get enough of it. Grand Scholar Qi suddenly remembered that he was still holding the jade brush. He carefully placed the tip of the brush in the middle of the brush, and then placed it on the mountain of brush. The great Grandmaster Qian Xingyuan had found was really outstanding. They could even use so many tricks on a small piece of writing. This brush, this mountain of brush, was exquisite and unique. He wished he could hold it in his hands and play with it. As soon as he put down the brush, Grand Scholar Qi seemed to have used up all his energy while writing. He immediately lost his breath and became the old Chi that Grand Scholar Zhou was familiar with. Grand Scholar Chi discovered that there was one more person in the hall, and it was his old rival. However, Grand Scholar Chi was feeling very proud at this moment. Even though he was his old rival, he still had to come over and admire his work. Grand Scholar Zhou wasn't at the point where he didn't have any manners. He came over to take a closer look and nodded to himself. This old Chi didn't dare to say anything else, but this character he had written today was the essence of calligraphy. It was as if old Chi had become a master of calligraphy overnight. How is this possible? After taking a closer look, Grand Scholar Zhou, who had excellent eyesight, immediately discovered many differences. This paper was not inferior to the animal skin he often used. This in color gave off an elegant and serene feeling. It was simply of the highest quality. This paper. Grand Scholar Zhou saw that something was wrong and asked directly. The pretty maidservant serving at the side quickly introduced. This is the work of the great paper-making master of the exquisite pavilion, Master Xian. The owner calls it Xian paper. If the Grand Scholar is interested, you can have a try here. Grand Scholar Zhou was taken aback. Xian paper was known as the great master papermaker. How could a mere papermaker deserve the name of Xian paper? Before Grand Scholar Zhou could rebuke him, Grand Scholar Chi said to Uncle Lu, shopkeeper, wrap up all the writing brushes, ink, paper, and inkstones that I have just tried, along with these small things. I want to buy them. I, Qin Xingyuan, am greatly honored by your patronage. Lu Shuxian flattered Grand Secretary Wang without a second thought. Then he said, Lu Bai, Liamo, Xian paper, Lu Yen. These are easy to deal with. How many sheets of Xian paper do I need? Grand Secretary Wang, please tell me. Jade paper? Grand Scholar Chi was taken aback. Is there another kind of paper? Yes. Uncle Lu nodded affirmatively. He pointed at the other two tables and said, the Xian paper with jade paper is raw paper. This side has the half-cooked Xian paper with gold sprinkling, and the other side has the calming heart hall paper. There are also some small-size flower washing paper. Grand Secretary Wang, do you only want the Xian paper with jade paper, or all of them? Not only Grand Scholar Chi, but also Grand Scholar Zhou was interested. There were so many possibilities for a piece of paper. Grand Scholar Chi couldn't care less that his old rival was by his side and asked Uncle Lu about the differences. Uncle Lu was very enthusiastic. He quickly explained the differences between raw paper and cooked paper and then asked the two of them to try to write on the paper to get a feel for it. Grand Scholar Chi didn't hesitate at all, heading straight for the calming heart hall paper. As for the sprinkling of gold, the Grand Scholar didn't care about such a splendid, luxurious, and vulgar thing. As soon as he picked up the writing brush on the table, Grand Scholar Zhou was taken aback. The spirit that had just disappeared seemed to return to Grand Scholar Chi's body at this moment. Old Chi seemed to enter a state of tranquility and thoughtlessness in the blink of an eye. Based on Grand Scholar Zhou's understanding of the old Chi, it was impossible for this to happen. This guy was a bit inferior to Grand Scholar Zhou because he couldn't concentrate when practicing calligraphy. How could he enter the state of mind so quickly? However, when Grand Scholar Zhou picked up the writing brush and heard the reminder of the pretty handmaiden in a low voice, he used his spiritual energy to activate the formation on the writing brush. Instantly, a tranquil state of mind surrounded Grand Scholar Zhou. So that was how it was. It wasn't that the old Chi was formidable. It was this writing brush that was formidable. As the tip of the writing brush reached into the inkstone, the feeling was even stronger. An irrepressible intent of the writing brush rose up in Grand Scholar Zhou's chest. Looking at the new piece of jade paper and sensing the steady state of mind of gentlemen, Grand Scholar Zhou waved the writing brush decisively. A neat, tranquil character was written in one go. When Grand Scholar Zhou picked up the writing brush, he felt as if he was expressing his inner thoughts to his heart's content. He felt comfortable writing this character, as if he had been suffering from writing for a long time. It was fortunate that he could endure it for such a long time. When he put down the writing brush, all the good feelings he had disappeared, as if he had just had a dream. But looking at his own writing, he was more satisfied with it than any other time he had written it. No wonder the old Chi seemed to become a master of calligraphy all of a sudden. Grand Scholar Zoe looked at the old Chi with disdain as he picked up the jade writing brush again and played with it. He asked the pretty handmaiden next to him, "How much is the set of this writing brush, ink, paper, and inkstone?" This gentleman's writing brush is the first work of Master Lu, so it is very valuable as a collection. The shaft of the writing brush is made of jade. The gentleman's writing brush is as gentle as jade, so it is called the gentleman's writing brush. The pretty handmaiden spoke immediately. She first told the maker and the story of the writing brush, and then announced the final price. This gentleman's writing brush of Lu's writing brush is sold for 200,000 gold coins. Puff! After trying out the calming Harhal paper, Grand Scholar Chi, who was also listening, almost spat out the mouthful of tea he had just drunk. A writing brush for 200,000 gold coins? He had wanted to pack a set just now. Now it seemed that he might not even be able to take this writing brush with him. This piece of ink is also the first work of Master Lu. It is smooth and glossy like lacquer, light when picked up, clear when ground, firm like jade when smelled, soundless when ground, like lacquer, true for 10,000 years. The handmaiden was completely copying Wang Sheng's description. This ingot of ink is 100,000 gold coins. When Grand Scholar Zoe and Grand Scholar Chi heard this price, all that was left was the sound of inhaling cold air. Chapter 525. This inkstone is also the first work of Master Lu of the Linglong Pavilion. The three friends of winter are noble and unsullied, and Master Lu is skillful. This is a rare Lu inkstone. The position of the delicate and pretty maid was that of a salesperson on earth. Not only was she eloquent, but her voice was also very pleasing to the ear, making people happy just by listening to her. Quick ink, deep ink. My humble shop's price is 200,000 gold coins. Jade sheet Xian, golden Xian, and clear heart hall paper. The shopkeeper has just said it. The pretty maid didn't continue the introduction. She just said the price. The three kinds of paper have the same price, starting from 1 gold coin. Flour washing paper for 1 gold coin for 10. After hearing the price, the two grand scholars froze on the spot, unable to say anything. Was it good? Good. Very good. However, the price was a bit high. Not a bit high, but a bit too high. The cheapest one was 1 gold coin for 1 piece of paper. With such a price, an ordinary person could only buy 4 or 5 to 7 or 8 pieces of paper with their annual income, and this was only for the consumables, which were used the most. If one wanted to buy a complete set of writing brushes, ink, paper, and inkstone, he would have to spend tens of thousands of households' fortune to afford it. And this was only the writing brushes, ink, paper, and inkstone, not counting those miscellaneous small things. The brush holder, brush hill, brush holder, paperweight, and so on were all the small 9 grades of writing, and each of them was worth a lot. If one wanted to buy a complete set, it would cost at least 2 million gold coins. Grand Scholar Zoe was still pondering with a frown, but Grand Scholar Chi had already thought of the look in Grand Scholar Zoe's eyes when he saw the big character he wrote. He had an idea. Gritting his teeth, he yelled at Uncle Lu, "Give me 200 pieces of all kinds of paper. Wrap up all the used writing brushes, ink, and inkstone. I want that paperweight, that brush holder, and this ink bed. I also want that regular pen and this small regular pen. The gold coins will be sent to the shop in the afternoon." Uncle Lu was overjoyed and hurriedly agreed. He hurriedly ordered a few maids to clean the writing brushes and inkstones and wrap them in the boxes that Wang Sheng had designed beforehand. Meanwhile, he quickly calculated in his mind, "Grand Secretary, these masterpieces add up to a total of 1,230,620 gold coins. I'll waive the small change for you. 1,230,000 gold coins will do." Grand Scholar Chi shot a provocative look at Grand Scholar Zoe in an ostentatious manner. After that, he swaggered away with his servants and bodyguards with his belongings. Grand Scholar Zoe was furious. He had been at loggerheads with old Chi for such a long time and had never suffered such humiliation. He was so furious that he didn't care about anything else. After all the things here were definitely of the highest quality. Grand Scholar Zoe was a little dissatisfied with using the name of a great grandmaster to name these treasures, but it was nothing compared to being despised by his lifelong enemy. Are there any more? Grand Scholar Zoe yelled at Uncle Lou angrily. Give me one of all the things in this set. Also, give me one of those things that old Chi didn't want. Give me 500 sheets of each kind of paper, and you don't need to waive the small change. I can't afford to lose face like this. The gold coins will be sent to me in the afternoon. Uncle Lou wrapped up the things with a flattering smile. After reporting the total amount of 1,911,550 gold coins, he happily saw off Grand Scholar Zoe and his entourage. When Grand Scholar Zoe walked out of the Qian Xingyuan, he was thinking that he had bought more things than old Chi and could even mock old Chi for being greedy for the small change of 600 gold coins. While he was feeling complacent, he turned his head and saw the 3 people kneeling at the door. Even this old man has to follow the rules and clearly mark the price when I come in to buy things. 2 million gold coins can only buy a complete set of stationery. How dare you use 10 gold coins to rob me? Where is the justice in this world? After reprimanding them loudly, he kicked the body of the Changshan prince heavily, knocking him to the ground. Grand Scholar Zoe is indeed a man of noble character and unquestionable integrity. Uncle Lou, of course, saw it. He gave Grand Scholar Zoe a thumbs up without hesitation, saying, "You are not afraid of the nobles, but you think highly of us lowly commoners. You're truly a pillar of our imperial court. Thank you so much." Kicking the body of the Changshan prince could bring him such benefits? The more Grand Scholar Zoe thought about it, the more complacent he felt. He stepped forward and kicked the other 2 people, and then left while laughing loudly. The 3 people on the ground didn't dare make a sound. They got up and knelt down obediently. The story of the fight between Grand Scholar Chi and Grand Scholar Zoe in the Qian Xingyuan had been spread out intentionally or unintentionally. It was obviously the version that favored Grand Scholar Zoe, and it should have been spread by the servants of Grand Scholar Zoe. In the story, the Grand Scholar Zoe bought a complete set of stationery and Grand Scholar Chi only bought a part of it, and the Grand Scholar Chi received more than 600 gold coins at a discount. And the story of Grand Scholar Zoe angrily rebuking the son of the Changshan prince and kicking the 3 disappointing fellows was spread out. Before noon, Grand Scholar Zoe's reputation in the capital city had become more and more famous. Of course, the most famous thing was the unique items made by the great grandmasters. Even for the great Scholar Chi and the great Scholar Zoe, none of the items they took were the same. Each item was unique and had different shapes and forms, but they all had many wonderful uses. As soon as the news spread out, those self-proclaimed great scholars or scholars in the capital city couldn't sit still anymore. They didn't even have lunch and went straight to Qian Xingyuan. There were more than 30 people kneeling in front of Qian Xingyuan's door, not just 3. Besides the 3 people, including the son of the Changshan prince, there were also the local ruffians who came to make trouble the other day. These guys were the local bullies, so they were the most well-informed. Even the son of the Changshan prince had been punished and had to kneel here. How could these small fries, who could easily pay tens of thousands of gold coins to kill their whole families, dare to stand still? Qian Xingyuan couldn't pay tens of thousands of gold coins to buy the heads of their whole families. He had sold them for more than 3 million gold coins in one morning. Together with the 66 million gold coins the day before, he had earned almost 6 million gold coins in 2 days. It was more than enough to buy the lives of their whole families and even their distant relatives. A strange scene appeared at the door of Qian Xingyuan's shop. The customers who came to the shop were all well-mannered and polite. However, each of them had a bad temper. When they saw the guys kneeling at the door, they kicked them one by one without any mercy. Some of the more hot-tempered ones didn't just kick, but also punched, kicked, and spat at those guys, as if they had committed some heinous crime. Naturally, Qian Xingyuan wanted to publicize these noble and righteous people's actions. From noon until the evening, the most popular story in the market was about someone kicking the son of the Changshan prince, or someone scolding the son of a noble. Every once in a while, a different name would pop up. The most ruthless one was an old teacher. He purposely asked Qian Xingyuan for a table in front of those kneeling fellows. Qian Xingyuan served tea, and the old teacher got into a stance. He scolded the group of people for 6 hours and then taught them a lesson for 6 hours. When the old teacher finished, the sons of the Changshan prince and the others even wanted to die. Chapter 5:26. In just one afternoon, 9 sets of stationery sets were sold. It wasn't that no one wanted to buy them, but that this batch of Grandmaster's works had already been sold out. If they wanted more, they would have to wait for 10 days. Those who had bought them first rejoiced. Those who had tried them out were impatient and hurriedly rushed to the residences of those who had bought them first. They offered a high price and were willing to pay 10% more for the complete set of stationery sets that had just been sold today. Those who had bought them naturally didn't mind the price difference. These complete sets of stationery sets gave them a lot of face in front of the entire city. How could they be willing to sell them? If they sold them at an additional 10%, would they still have any face left? Once the news spread, the value of the first batch of Grandmaster's works immediately rose by 10%. Furthermore, they were priceless. Those who had bought them, even their servants, felt that they were a head higher than the servants of other families. That was a considerable amount of face. Those who hadn't bought them beat their chests and stomped their feet, hating themselves for not coming earlier. However, fortunately, Qian Xingyuan had also opened a custom-made business. Those scholars who hadn't bought them could completely state the style they wanted, and the Grandmaster would customize them according to their requirements. This was much better than choosing 1 or 2 based on the works. Qian Xingyuan had received more than 40 custom-made orders in a single day, and almost all of them were complete sets. Most people returned satisfied. The few who were dissatisfied were because they were embarrassingly poor and couldn't afford these top-quality works. However, they had tried them, and they were truly treasures that they couldn't resist. At the end of the day, the shop was closed. Uncle Lu and the others were still busily settling the accounts and organizing the custom-made requests in detail, preparing to send them to Linglong Pavilion. Qian Xingyuan's shop was finally devoid of people. Only then did Crown Prince Changshan and the others feel relieved for the day. More than 30 people had bruised noses and swollen faces. Whether it was the 3 princes or the local ruffians, all of them had some cultivation. However, when those scholars and officials, whose cultivation was obviously lower than theirs, kicked them, not a single one of them dared to dodge or circulate their energy to resist. They all took it head-on, suffering unspeakably. The 3 of them had already regretted it countless times. There were so many powerful people in the capital, but none of them had jumped out to target Qian Xingyuan. That was because they were smart and knew to observe the situation before making a decision. However, they were afraid that someone else would beat them to it. They thought that Wang Sheng had already collapsed, so they rushed to jump out. The result was his current behavior. 70% of the family property of the 3 had been confiscated. Everything they had stolen from them had also been confiscated. Not to mention the salaries of the elders, just the 3 of them themselves would have to endure this pain for 2 more days. After 2 days, they would have to ponder over their mistakes in seclusion for half a year. Not being able to leave the mansion for half a year, he really didn't know how he was going to survive that kind of boring life. On the other hand, although the hooligans were beaten, kicked, and scolded, the big stone in their hearts was finally lifted. Qian Xingyuan's head shopkeeper, Lu, finally spoke. They followed the crown prince and the others. No matter how long the crown prince knelt, they would do the same. After kneeling, Qian Xingyuan would no longer pursue their previous provocations. However, the prerequisite was that they couldn't go against Qian Xingyuan in the future. Otherwise, there wouldn't be a second chance. These hooligans were practically kowtowing in agreement. Qian Xingyuan didn't go overboard. Even the crown prince had knelt, so they should all be dead. Now that they were given a chance to live, how could they not be happy? As for provoking Qian Xingyuan again, who was an idiot? Would they dare to provoke a colossus with a daily turnover of 70 to 80 million gold coins? Did they think they had too many people? Or that they didn't want to die fast enough? It could be said that in 2 days, Qian Xingyuan had shot to fame. To be able to buy Qian Xingyuan's martial grandmaster's custom-made items, that was face and means. Using these items was more prestigious than using ordinary items. They were of a higher grade and could attract the attention of the surrounding people. Furthermore, Qian Xingyuan's initial position was that these martial grandmaster's items weren't just stationary. They were also works of art that could be played with and collected. Apart from paper, all other types of items were excellent items that could be played with. The new buyers who had already bought the items couldn't wait to play with them one by one. They couldn't bear to part with them. That night, Wang Sheng and Mayer brought a complete set of stationery and account books to the Su residence next door. This was an appointment that had been made long ago. While exchanging business information, it could also be considered as a benefit that Wang Sheng gave to the emperor. Qian Xingyuan's instant success gave Mayer a lot of confidence. With a daily turnover of over 80 million gold coins, even after deducting the martial grandmaster's remuneration, the profit was still half. The entire Bao Qing Yutang's refined salt business only earned 200 million gold coins in 2 years. Qian Xingyuan earned 1/5 of Bao Qing Yutang's profit in 1 day. What else was there to be dissatisfied about? What else was there to be unconfident about? After greeting Uncle Su, Mayer couldn't wait to go to the back hall to discuss the beauty salon business with Madame Su. If the beauty salon could earn half of Qian Xingyuan's profit, it would be a great business. As for Wang Sheng, he was naturally drinking with the emperor and Steward Zhou in the middle hall. "This is for me." Tianzi was very surprised and pleasantly surprised. This was because Wang Sheng had given him a complete set of what could be said to be the first batch of the Grandmaster's proudest works for him to use. This made Tianzi very surprised. "I just announced that I don't want any tributes, and you're already giving it to me. Aren't you making me go back on my words?" Although he said so, the emperor picked up one by one and carefully admired it. He couldn't bear to part with it. After playing with it for a while, he blurted out, "How about I buy another set?" "This set is not needed." Wang Sheng shook his head. "This is considered a shareholder benefit. You can take the best batch for now. If you're not satisfied with it, we'll talk about it later. When the Grandmasters are more proficient in their craftsmanship, they'll give you an even better batch. As for buying tributes, this kind of thing doesn't need to happen again and again. Just come every once in a while." The emperor deeply agreed. Political shows shouldn't be done too often. If it was done too often, it would seem fake. It was fine to do it occasionally. Seeing that Wang Sheng handed over a thick book bound with calming heart hall paper, he couldn't help but ask, "What is this?" "Today's account book." Wang Sheng casually replied, "Let me show it to you, lest you worry about losing money." Although he already knew the approximate amount, when the emperor opened the account book and saw the specific number, he was still surprised and happy. At this rate, the 10 million gold coins he had invested would be fully recovered in less than a month or two. In the future, this would be a continuous income, comparable to the salt and sugar business. The emperor was happy and drank a few more cups with Wang Sheng and Steward Zhou. In the end, the emperor still couldn't help but ask, "Wang Sheng, how did you kill Blood Knife?" Chapter 5:27. The Godly Might Prison's legendary killer, Bloodblade, died in the hands of Wang Sheng. Now, only 4 groups of people knew the exact news. One group was definitely Steward Wang and Mayer of the Marquis Mansion. The other group was the Laojun Temple, where Taoist Qing Ling was present. The third group was the Emperor. After Bloodblade died, Steward Zhou and Steward Li went to the scene. However, like Taoist Qing Ling, they only knew the result, not the process. Of course, the last group was definitely the Godly Might Prison. The revered one of the world didn't make a move at that time, but he took away Bloodblade's corpse. It could be said that this was the Godly Might Prison's biggest loss since they sent out the legendary realm assassins. 2 legendary assassins. One died directly in the hands of the target, and the other didn't make a move. Except for Wang Sheng. Among these 4 groups, no one knew how Wang Sheng killed Bloodblade, because according to common sense, this was simply impossible. 2 legendary realm assassins came to kill a 4th or 5th stage junior. Even if one of them didn't make a move, the junior wouldn't be able to survive. Once one entered the legendary realm, it was completely different from before. The difference between the peak of the 8th stage and the 9th stage was like heaven and earth. Using a more realistic description, a 9th stage legendary expert could instantly kill an 8th stage expert. Don't think that there's only a slight difference, but it was really a difference in quality. Steward Joe and Steward Lee both saw the result at that time. But after returning to the palace, no matter how they deduced, they couldn't find out what method Wang Sheng used to kill Bloodblade. Just the result of the deduction gave Steward Joe, Steward Lee, and another old monster of the royal family a headache for many days. The third old monster even kept complaining that Steward Joe and Steward Lee must have seen wrongly, using an impossible thing to fool him. However, with the cultivation of Steward Joe and Steward Lee, how could they see wrongly? So the emperor also began to have a headache. This showed that in addition to the means that Wang Sheng revealed to him, there were still many powerful means that he was far from knowing. Thinking about it, Wang Sheng didn't need to use those poisonous gas bombs, but he was still able to kill a legendary 9th stage assassin face to face. Didn't that mean that if Wang Sheng wanted to kill him, he wouldn't be able to escape? Finally, Tianzi was smart enough to know that Wang Sheng had no hostility towards him, so he didn't have any killing intent like last time. However, the depression of not knowing the truth was really unbearable for Tianzi. That was why the situation at the dinner table happened. Burned to death, Wang Sheng replied without even thinking about it. Steward Joe and Chief Steward Lee should have seen it. Steward Joe nodded, but he was really curious about what method Wang Sheng had used. In the past, when the three of them drank together like this, Steward Joe still had the confidence to win. He felt that as long as Wang Sheng did not use his ultimate weapon to perish together, he would be able to control Wang Sheng so that he would not be able to harm Tianzi. But now, he didn't even have this confidence. What was that loud noise about? Tianzi had a stomach full of questions that he wanted to know the answer to. Using the opportunity of picking up the food, he naturally asked without any awkwardness. Also, the training room in your residence. How did it suddenly become like that? Oh, the burning was too intense, so it exploded. Wang Sheng casually replied. The training room wasn't that sturdy, so it was blown to pieces. Steward Joe thought about the situation at that time and nodded slightly. He could see that the blood knife was burned to death, and he could also see that the training room was destroyed by the explosion, but he didn't know the real reason. He didn't know the real method of Wang Sheng. However, Wang Sheng only said the result and didn't mention the reason and the process. This made Steward Joe's heart itch to threaten Wang Sheng to tell him. Tianzi was even more depressed than Steward Joe. He didn't want to know this. Steward Joe and Steward Lee had already said that the blood knife was burned to ashes, so he was definitely burned to death. It wasn't a lie that the training room was blown to pieces. Even if there was some strong burning fuel, such as oil, it was normal to burn intensely and cause an explosion. The question was, how did it suddenly cause such a violent explosion? Blood Knife was a legendary 9th stage assassin. How could such an expert just stand there and wait for you to set him on fire? Even if you set him on fire with his cultivation, even if you directly poured oil on his body, it was impossible to kill him, right? Not to mention that his cultivation was enough to block the flames and oil outside his body. Even if he didn't use his power to resist, as long as the fire started, he could have quickly jumped into the pool in the Marquis's mansion. That pool was less than a dozen feet away from the training room. For a legendary realm assassin, it was not a problem at all. But the blood knife was burned to death on the spot. If one were to ask how to explain this scene, it would be that the burning was so intense that it instantly took Blood Knife's life, or that it instantly destroyed Blood Knife's ability to move. That was the only explanation. But this, how did it happen? Such a big explosion. How can you be fine? The Emperor continued to ask. When Steward Joe and Steward Lee went over, you were unscathed. Inside my training room, aren't there 2 big cauldrons? Wang Sheng explained to the Emperor, there's a big cauldron without ears. I went inside and turned upside down. No matter how big the movement outside is, it can't hurt me. This was purely an explanation for the Emperor. Steward Joe wouldn't ask such a simple question. If he couldn't see that Wang Sheng was hiding under the big cauldron, then he would be blind. Steward Zhou was puzzled. Blood Knife was such a fierce expert. How could he leave enough time for Wang Sheng to escape and safely hide under the big cauldron? Steward Zhou couldn't sleep if he didn't explain this question. But at this most critical moment, Wang Sheng didn't say anything else. This made the Emperor and Steward Zhou extremely depressed, but there was nothing they could do. Finally, there's the good news of making money. It wasn't enough to make the Emperor so depressed that he couldn't eat. He could only drink with Wang Sheng and make Wang Sheng drink a few cups. Only then did he feel better. On the Emperor's side, Steward Zhou and Steward Li relied on their imagination to infer what happened. In the Godly Might prison, because the World Supreme brought back the complete body of the Blood Knife, they could infer more things. Blood Knife's body was inlaid with steel balls, but the experts of the Godly Might prison unanimously determined that this wasn't the cause of his death. Similarly, although the long arrows that penetrated Blood Knife's body seemed fatal, they weren't the real cause of his death. Everyone speculated that whether it was the steel balls or the long arrows, they were just tools that were used to end Wang Sheng's pain. The real cause of death might still be severe burns. Although they didn't know how Blood Knife started burning, there was one thing that these experts of the Godly Might prison could be sure of. The burning started from inside the body. Chapter 528. The experts of the Godly Might prison were really knowledgeable. Bloodblade did start burning from the inside, but the culprit was actually the outside. The black gunpowder and the high temperature brought by Wang Sheng's arson bomb roasted Bloodblade's external skin and the thick tissues below. The high temperature even ignited the fat layer of a human body. Once it came into contact with fresh air, it started burning immediately. From this point of view, it was indeed burning from the inside to the outside. It wasn't easy for these experts to see this. But no matter how hard they thought, they couldn't figure out why a legendary realm expert like Bloodblade would start burning on his own. The World Supreme had been interrogated countless times by these experts of the Godly Might prison. He was already impatient. He said the same thing every time, but these guys seemed to want to find out something different from what he said. What the Godly Might prison knew now was that Wang Sheng must have attacked alone, because when he rushed back, only Wang Sheng and Taoist Qingling were conscious. The servants and guards of Wang Sheng's residence were all in a distance and unconscious. Some of these guards were personally dealt with by the World Supreme, so he was sure that they couldn't wake up in such a short time. Even Steward Zhou and Steward Li appeared after the World Supreme arrived. At that time, it could be said that there was no one beside Wang Sheng except for him. It would be a joke to say that Wang Sheng killed Bloodblade by relying on his cultivation. What everyone wanted to know now was that method and nothing else. The huge explosion in the training room was very suspicious. Perhaps it was this explosion that caused Bloodblade's death. But how could such a powerful explosion be produced? This was another problem. The Godly Might prison really had an expert. From the explosion in the training room to the black ashes and smoke that the World Supreme saw when he arrived, he had deduced some things. This expert was an alchemist, but he wasn't a pure alchemist. Instead, he was very whimsical and often used some unknown things to refine some strange things. After hearing the World Supreme's description, he returned to his residence, took out some things, and asked the World Supreme if he had seen these things at Wang Sheng's place. It was some fine and uneven powder. It was black, and there were some messy impurities in it. If Wang Sheng was here, he would definitely be able to recognize that it was some black gunpowder filled with impurities. The charcoal, saltpeter, and sulfur were not made in a very fine powder, and the purity was not very high, but it had a pungent smell of sulfur. No! The world-honored one shook his head. He had seen the ruins of the explosion of the technique training room several times, but there was nothing like this. Watch! The alchemy master didn't get angry. He grabbed the impurities of the black gunpowder and placed it in his hand. Then he held a match in his other hand, and after blowing on it, he approached the black gunpowder. Chi! The black gunpowder in the alchemy master's hand burned fiercely, issuing a long, sizzling sound, and then everyone immediately smelled the smell of gunpowder smoke. This is the smell. The world's sovereign immediately smelled the familiar smell. This smell was so unique, so deep in his memory. He had smelled on the ruins of the training room in the house of Chang Sheng-ho. The taste was right, and it was also right that this thing could burn. But everyone still couldn't understand how Blood Knife died. The black gunpowder didn't burn very fast, and the heat brought by the burning couldn't even hurt the hands of the alchemy master. One had to know that the alchemy master was only at the 7th stage, far from the legend realm. Even he couldn't hurt it, so how could it burn Blood Knife to death? Moreover, this was just a sizzling burn, and there was no violent explosion. So where did that loud sound come from? Could it be that a large amount of this thing was needed to make it explode? The alchemy master didn't believe it, so he got a large pile of black gunpowder and set it on fire. The result was still the same. If it wasn't wrapped tightly, the black gunpowder would only burn violently, and it wouldn't explode. Especially when the ratio was wrong and the so-called black gunpowder wasn't pure enough. It would be the same no matter how much there was. But no matter what, since the smell was right, and it could burn, and after it burned, the ground turned black and gray, which meant that this was the direction. Wang Xing definitely knew some unique formula that could make this thing explode and kill an expert like Blood Knife. The higher-ups of the Godly Might prison didn't say anything and immediately asked this alchemy master to study the content in this aspect. A weapon that could kill a legend realm expert, not to mention the Godly Might prison. Any organization wouldn't let it go easily. The revered one of the world looked at these people tormenting themselves, and his heart was full of anger. Killing Wang Sheng this time was already a difficult matter. In the past, elderly of the Godly Might prison once said that it was better not to offend such a person. At that time, Wang Sheng was just a nobody, and elderly of the Godly Might prison already gave him such an evaluation. Now that Wang Sheng was barely a minor expert, wasn't it worth it to offend him like this? In fact, the Godly Might prison didn't underestimate Wang Sheng. They sent a legend realm expert, Blood Knife, and a revered one of the world to hold the line. Originally, he thought that as long as Wang Sheng could escape Crimson Saber's attack, he would let him live. This could be considered as fulfilling his helplessness when he was forced to make a move. But who would have thought that Blood Knife would die in Wang Sheng's hands? Especially when Blood Knife died, Wang Sheng stood there calmly, as if everything was as it should be. This made the revered one of the world very uncomfortable. After thinking for a while, the world's sovereign bade farewell to the manager of the Godly Might prison and left on his own, heading to the capital city again. He wasn't going to kill Wang Sheng, but to find out what was going on. The status of the revered one in the Godly Might prison was extraordinary. No one could stop him from doing what he wanted to do. Moreover, the higher-ups of the Godly Might prison also thought that it would be beneficial for them if the revered one of the world could learn something from Wang Sheng. Hence, they did not stop him. The Godly Might prison did not want to make a move on Wang Sheng. If they killed Wang Sheng, who would lead them into the core of the grounds of Thousand Despair. But this time, there was a reason he had no choice but to help. He owed the other party a huge favor, so he had no choice but to repay it. But now, from a manager to the revered one of the world, everyone was regretting it. If they had known this would happen, they would not have made a move because of that favor. Wang Sheng was in the capital city and did not know that the revered one of the world had come to look for him. After Qian Xingyuan opened its business and cooperated smoothly with the great grandmasters of the Pavilion of Delicacy, Wang Sheng understood that it was time for him to leave. Without him, Qian Xingyuan could also develop slowly. Moreover, Mei Er's business was supported by the emperor. As long as Mei Er was not stupid enough to rebel, she could live a life of wealth. But Wang Sheng himself had to leave. Otherwise, if he stayed with Mei Er for a long time, Wang Sheng could not guarantee that he could still resist the temptation of her natural charm. Wang Sheng already missed the eyes of the girl in his dreams. Chapter 529. However, before leaving, Wang Sheng still had one more thing to do, and that was to make arrangements for the expert Taoist priest that the Laojun Temple had promised to give him. There were many experts in the Laojun Temple, and most of them had lived and cultivated in the Laojun Temple all their lives. In the end, they became experts and became the foundation of the Laojun Temple. Wang Sheng had talked about this matter with the old Taoist Ling Su and the Grand Abbey Dean previously, and they had also promised to send a group of experts to follow Wang Sheng and experience the colorful world. Just as Wang Sheng had said, to come out into the world, one must first enter it. If one didn't pick it up, how could one put it down? Those experts would definitely become the pillars of the new generation of the Laojun Temple after gaining experience in the secular world. Previously, when Wang Sheng was dealing with Qian Xingyuan, the old Taoist Ling Su had been instructing this group of disciples to learn the 9 symbolic words and Tai Chi Fist, which are the purest Taoist cultivation methods. After such a long time, they had barely crossed the threshold and could come out to gain experience. Among them, the biggest contributor was, of course, Wang Sheng, especially in the teaching of the 9 symbolic words. When Wang Sheng tempered his body with spiritual energy last time, hundreds of people resonated and experienced the power of the 9 symbolic words at the same time. Everyone was enlightened. It was also because of this that when Ancestor Ling Su and the Grand Abbey Dean mentioned that they wanted a group of people to follow Wang Sheng to gain experience, it did not cause much dissatisfaction. If it was in the past, Wang Sheng had no fame or prestige, how could he be qualified to be able to command a group of experts? However, with the karma of passing on skills, it was very different. Even the old Taoist Qing Ling had no objections to Wang Sheng's arrangements, let alone others. In less than a month after Qian Xingyuan opened, 100 Taoist experts came to the Changsheng Ho residence one after another. These experts did not come together, also under the guise of Mei Er's guards, so that the emperor would not make a fuss again. In addition, these Tao sect experts had all changed into secular clothes. Other than their extraordinary temperament, it was basically impossible to tell that they were from the Tao sect. These people were using the guise that Mei Er had secretly subdued in Baoqin Yutang, so no one saw anything wrong with it. In particular, when these people came, it was more than a month after Wang Sheng was assassinated and his training room was bombed. From the point of view of the arrangements, when the guards were discovered to be insufficient, experts from all over were transferred over. It was perfect timing, and there were no flaws. Since he was here to gain experience, there was no need for Wang Sheng to treat him like a saint. Before they set off, they had also been warned that no one would object to Wang Sheng's arrangements and that they would do as they were told. Qian Xingyuan's bodyguards were definitely needed. Right now, Qian Xingyuan only had one shop, and there were still 3 or 4 more behind him. He should be able to accommodate them. The guard to the Marquis's residence were also needed. It was impossible for Wang Sheng to entrust Mei Er's safety to the few bodyguards arranged by the emperor, so he still needed these Tao sect experts to share the burden. As for the new beauty salon that Mei Er would open in the future, he definitely needed a batch of them. In this way, there would be 100 people, 3 businesses, and a few people in each class. These experts would also rotate, so that they could meet different customers with different identities and statuses during the period of protection. Of course, they had to see more people's hearts for experience. The rotation was naturally to let these experts have more time. Their salary was not low, and they could spend as much as they wanted in the capital during their free time. This was also part of the experience, and they had to see the colorful world. First, they would train in these places for a year, and then Wang Sheng would bring a group of people to the land of 1,000 extremes. In the land of 1,000 extremes, it was a cultivation experience, not a human experience. He had already informed these Tao sect experts in advance, as well as Ancestor Ling Su and the Grand Abbey Dean, and they all nodded. Originally, he planned to let all these experts experience the land of 1,000 extremes, but after the assassination, Wang Sheng pondered for a long time and decided to bring a few Tao sect experts into the land of 1,000 extremes. If it wasn't for Taoist priest Qing Ling, he would have been killed by Blood Knife and the world sovereign and would not have had the chance to arrange these things. Speaking of which, for Wang Sheng, the safest place was not the capital, nor was it the worry-free city, but the land of 1,000 extremes. The land of 1,000 extremes, which was full of danger to outsiders, was a rare place with good feng shui for Wang Sheng. At least Wang Sheng could sleep peacefully there, but outside the land of thousand extremes, there were people who would plot against Wang Sheng everywhere. This time, the main reason for entering the land of thousand extremes was for safety and cultivation. Another reason was to advance the process of saving the girl in his dreams. As for the rest, it was also to establish a base for himself. A cunning rabbit has 3 burrows, and it wouldn't be too much to have a few more. And the target that Wang Sheng had his eyes on this time was the underground palace that he had explored with Mayer previously. That place was originally the location of an alchemy sect. The terrain was dangerous, and it was easy to defend and hard to attack. After a simple renovation, he would be able to make a good camp. It was originally close to the core of the land of thousand extremes, and there were many benefits to cultivating there. Moreover, the underground palace was even safer. He could even use the earth-fire vein to refine pills, killing many birds with one stone. The camp that was built together with the Imperial Treasury was mainly controlled by the Imperial Treasury, and Wang Sheng would get a share. Wang Sheng now needed a base where he could be the master. When Wang Sheng told this plan to old Taoist Qing Ling, the old Taoist couldn't sit still and directly begged Wang Sheng not to leave first. He wanted to go back to the Laojun Temple to discuss with the Patriarch and the Grand Abbey Dean. Not even half a day after Taoist Qing Ling went back, old Taoist Ling Su appeared in the Marquis's residence. Without saying anything, he directly pulled Wang Sheng out. Wang Sheng didn't even have the chance to ask before he was pulled out of the capital and went straight to the Laojun Temple. It didn't take much effort to travel dozens of miles. When he arrived at the Laojun Temple, Wang Sheng saw the Grand Abbey Dean with a group of old and virtuous old Taoists, dressed in the most orthodox Taoist robes, waiting for him in the Laojun Hall of the Laojun Temple. Before Wang Sheng could figure out what was going on, old Taoist Ling Su had already disappeared quickly. When he appeared again, he was actually wearing an official Taoist robe and standing at the front. Kowtow. The old Taoist didn't explain to Wang Sheng and directly ordered. In front of the statue of the founder of the Laojun Temple, the Taoist Patriarch, there was no problem for Wang Sheng to kowtow. This was the Laojun Temple. In front of so many experts who looked old but could almost kill him in seconds, Wang Sheng respectfully kowtowed to the Taoist Patriarch 3 times. Old Taoist Ling Su waited for Wang Sheng to kowtow and then handed him 3 sticks of incense for him to burn. After all this was done, he let Wang Sheng stand up. Then it was the old Taoist's turn to kowtow and burn incense. Finally, it was the Grand Abbey Dean and the others. All of this baffled Wang Sheng. What was going on? All right, I've paid my respects to the Patriarch. Old Taoist, I've already accepted Wang Sheng as a disciple on behalf of my master. After everything was done, old Taoist Ling Su then told Wang Sheng the whole story of the ceremony just now. What? Wang Sheng was immediately stunned. He had become a Taoist Patriarch. Chapter 530. Taoism was almost the only religion in this world. It was not a big deal for him to become a layman disciple. Anyway, Wang Sheng was inextricably linked to Taoism because of Tao Te Ching, the Buddhist incantation of 9 words, and Tai Chi, especially the statues of the 3 pure ones, which firmly pinned him to Taoism. But suddenly, he became old Taoist Ling Su's junior brother, a disciple of the Su generation. What a joke. He had thought that there were so many people here for a Dharma assembly, but it turned out to be his apprenticeship ceremony. The old Taoist didn't say anything, so Wang Sheng just kowtowed in confusion. If he regretted it now, Wang Sheng looked at the scene in the Great Supreme Lord Hall and counted the number of white-haired and white-bearded old Taoist. He gave in. Not even 10 Bloodblades would dare to show themselves in such a situation. Wang Sheng might as well just accept it. Anyway, there was no harm in this for Wang Sheng. With such a large group of experts behind him, he would be able to talk tough in the future. It was just that he didn't know beforehand, which made Wang Sheng a little depressed. The ceremony was over and the crowd dispersed, leaving only the old Taoist Ling Su, the Grand Abbey Dean, and Wang Sheng. Old Taoist, senior apprentice brother. Wang Sheng had only just addressed him as Old Taoist when Old Taoist Ling Su glared at him. Wang Sheng had no choice but to call him senior apprentice brother. What's the matter? Old Taoist Ling Su asked proudly. He had wanted to do this for a long time, but Wang Sheng didn't agree, so he didn't force him. But this time, when Xing Ling came back and told Wang Sheng's plan, the old Taoist couldn't sit still. Even the Grand Abbey Dean couldn't sit still. The Grand Abbey Dean was the best. He directly gave an idea to the old Taoist. Let's not say anything first. Just follow the rules and wait until the rice is cooked. Sure enough, now that Wang Sheng had fallen into the trap, the old Taoist was so happy that he almost lost his bearings. I've offended quite a few people. You guys better think this through. Wang Sheng began to count with his fingers. Let's not talk about Hai Duke's song. I've just killed a legendary realm assassin from the Godly Might prison. Bao Qingyuhal probably hates me to the core now. I don't know how many people in several vassal states want my head. The capital may not be so peaceful. It's not wise for you to pull me into the Tao sect at this time. Bullshit. Even with the Grand Abbey Dean by his side, the old Taoist did not hold back when he spoke. Vulgarities came out of his mouth. From now on, you'll be the most senior secular elder in Taoism. If anyone is dissatisfied, ask him to come to the Laojun Abbey to reason with you. The old Taoist's words were unreliable. He did not care about the occasion at all. However, when Wang Sheng looked at the Grand Abbey Dean actually nodded. If anyone dares to be disrespectful to the elders in the future, our Laojun Abbey also has a guardian expert. We're not afraid of them being unreasonable. Great, all the Taoists nodded. It seemed that Wang Sheng, the secular elder, could not run away. That's good. He's an elder at the level of an ancestor. How impressive. I'm not afraid of you laughing at me. Don't you want to go to the land of thousand despair to get another territory? Although Taoism doesn't care about worldly affairs, we don't want to lag behind in this matter. The elder master's words were like those of a Jianghu negotiation. However, it was exactly what Wang Sheng wanted. We have people and money. We'll do whatever you say. Wang Sheng nodded. The land of thousand despair was a big cake. Even if Taoism didn't care about worldly affairs, it was impossible for them not to take a bite. Now that Wang Sheng had this idea, and he happened to be in the capital, how could Taoism not grab hold of him? Even without this, Taoism would not allow Wang Sheng to be roped in by other forces just by relying on the second half of the Tao Te Ching that Wang Sheng had yet to say. No matter what, they had to use the title of a secular elder to tie Wang Sheng to Taoism's war chariot. Taoism's reputation was good. They did not participate in political struggles, but their reputation was strong enough. In the future, if there were any assassins or feudal lords who wanted to deal with him, they would have to think about the feelings of Taoism behind Wang Sheng, and they would have to be more careful when doing things. To Wang Sheng, this was a guarantee of safety. The reason why Wang Sheng told Taoist Qing Ling about his plan was that he wanted to pull Taoism along with him. However, since the old Taoist and the Grand Abbey Dean thought so highly of him and even pulled him into Taoism, there is no need to say anything else. He directly made his request. That place was originally the remains of an alchemy sect. It's not small, and it's suitable for a camp. Wang Sheng thought about the terrain that he had passed through and said, "There's also a huge underground palace underground, and there are dozens of earth-fire alchemy furnaces inside for alchemy. It's very safe inside." The old Taoist and the Grand Abbey Dean listened very carefully and did not want to miss out on any details. It's easy to build a stable camp if all the people are disciples of Taoism. Wang Sheng analyzed the benefits. If it's outsiders, the biggest problem is probably the insects and demonic beasts in those places. However, as long as the disciples of Taoism study the 9 symbolic words to a certain standard and use the wholeness formula and formation formula well, they don't have to worry about these things. Those who could cultivate the 9 symbolic words to a certain standard were definitely experts of Taoism. With them around, even if some powerful demonic beasts occasionally attacked, they could easily resist and there was no need to worry about safety. This was the huge advantage of Taoism. I'm afraid the only problem is the water source. Wang Sheng thought about the troublesome part. Because there's an underground space and there's an earth fire vein, so if we want clean drinking water, we have to fetch water from dozens of miles away every day. If we want to refine pills, we can't use the water source near the earth fire vein because it's poisonous. As for the rest, there's not much to pay attention to. In short, we have to bring a few formation masters, a few alchemy masters, a group of disciples who are skillful with their hands and can build things, and a few experts to accompany us. Wang Xing thought for a while. I estimate that it'll take a few months to half a year to build that camp. We can also refine a batch of good pills there. After hearing Wang Sheng's request, the Grand Abbey Dean stood up and left without another word. I'll go arrange the manpower and things, and we can leave within a day. Finally, only the old Taoist Ling Su and Wang Sheng were left. The old Taoist still felt a little guilty and smiled awkwardly at Wang Sheng. Wang Sheng had no choice but to threaten the old Taoist. If something like this happens again in the future, tell me first. You owe me one. The old Taoist nodded hurriedly. This time, Taoism had benefited greatly. It could be said that after building this camp with Wang Sheng, it was directly monopolized by Taoism. With such a huge benefit, not to mention owing Wang Sheng one time, he would even follow Wang Sheng as his guard for a few more years. Although the old Taoist used to dislike the Grand Abbey Dean and the others, he had always spared no effort in supporting Taoism's development. Wang Sheng heaved a sigh of relief. With Taoism's support, the pressure on him could finally be reduced. This secular Taoism elder was not bad. Thinking about how an old Taoist like the old Taoist Ling Su had to call him elder, it was really cool. Chapter 531. After settling down the young expert from the Grand Supreme Lord Temple, Wang Sheng basically had nothing else to do. The preparations for entering the ground of Thousand Extremities were shockingly fast. On the day Wang Sheng made his request, the next morning the Grand Supreme Lord Temple told Wang Sheng that they could set off anytime. The Grand Supreme Lord Temple was indeed the representative of the world's #1 religion. The financial resources and manpower behind it were simply jaw-dropping. When Wang Sheng was on Earth, he had heard from history writers that in some ancient dynasties, the temple's assets were more than the national treasury. At that time, Wang Sheng thought it was a joke. But looking at the Grand Supreme Lord Temple now, it didn't seem that exaggerated. Half of the 100 Taoists were white-haired old Taoists, while the other half were middle-aged or even young Taoists. They planned to follow Wang Sheng into the ground of Thousand Extremities. To be selected into the ground of Thousand Extremities, there was definitely a hard standard. Experts were a must, and the worst one was at least in the 5th degree realm. In addition, all of them were loyal to the Grand Supreme Lord Temple and the Taoist sect. These two were the red lines, but that wouldn't do. This matter concerned the future development of the Grand Supreme Lord Temple, and they had to be careful. Each of these people had their own specialties. Some were good at arrays, some were good at forging, some were good at alchemy, and so on. All in all, if the Grand Supreme Lord Temple didn't count the territory and only looked at the people, it was like a small vassal state. They had all kinds of talents and could almost be self-sufficient. If it was just people, Wang Sheng wouldn't have made such a fuss. Looking at the things prepared by the Grand Supreme Lord Temple, there was a huge pile of various array stones and materials. In terms of gold coins, it was almost tens of millions. And these are just the array stones, nothing else. There were several hundred storage rings that were used to store these items, as well as the food and water that everyone used in their daily lives. Each of them cost tens of thousands of gold coins, while the better ones cost tens of millions. The moment this batch of storage rings was taken out, Wang Sheng was stunned. Although Wang Sheng also had quite a few storage rings on him, they were all obtained from killing enemies in the land of Thousand Despair. However, the quality varied. Some were of the highest quality, while others were of the lowest quality. Later on, Wang Sheng streamlined his collection, giving away the ones he didn't need or exchanging them for gold equipment. Now, he only carried a dozen or so of them, distributed all over his body. Although Wang Sheng was also a rare rich man, he was nothing compared to Lao Junguan. Just these storage rings alone were enough to make Wang Sheng look like a pauper. Just like that, the Laojun temple didn't make any movements at all, let alone suffer any serious injuries. They finished their preparations within a day without alerting the other forces in the capital. It could only be said that the Laojun temple's foundation was so deep that it was a little scary. Wang Sheng was very happy. The stronger his backer was, the more secure his safety would be. He didn't reject joining the Laojun temple. It was good for everyone to cooperate. After arranging to meet the people from the Laojun temple at the edge of the land of Thousand Despair near the outskirts of the capital, Wang Sheng returned to the Marquis's mansion in the capital and made arrangements for leaving. It was certain that he would bid farewell to Mei Er. The little lass had been so busy recently that she didn't even try to tempt Wang Sheng. Originally, Mei Er was very strong. After being abandoned by Bao Qing Yutang and eliminated by Bao Qing Yutang, she didn't have a moment of weakness. However, when she heard that Wang Sheng was leaving, she suddenly lost control. In front of the two personal maids, Mei Er threw herself into Wang Sheng's arms without reservation. She hugged his sturdy body tightly as tears flowed down silently. This man gave her the greatest help when she was at her weakest. However, when she returned to the peak of her life, he was going to leave. Although it had only been a few short months, Mei Er had already gotten used to this kind of life. She was used to having Wang Sheng by her side. She was used to the fact that no matter how big the problem was, Wang Sheng could easily solve it with a smile. It was only by Wang Sheng's side that a woman like her could fully display her abilities and do what she liked to do. It was the same for saving her life, taking back the Marquis's mansion, helping her suppress Bao Qing Yutang, giving her Qian Shengyuan, and bringing her to know Uncle Su and Madame Su. With Wang Sheng by her side, Mei Er felt an unprecedented peace and happiness. Even though Mei Er had always known that Wang Sheng wouldn't be able to stay in the capital for too long, and that he wouldn't be able to be the ever-victorious Marquis for too long, she had always been deceiving herself that there was still time, that Wang Sheng was still here, and that he wouldn't leave immediately. She would also mischievously tempt Wang Sheng and tease Wang Sheng. No one knew how much Mei Er cared about Wang Sheng's words. Wang Sheng said that after Mei Er cultivated to the peak of the fourth-degree realm illusionary fox spirit, he would teach her how to break through. These days, Mei Er had been secretly cultivating hard every day. She had even learned many secret cultivation methods from Madame Su. She believed that in less than half a year's time, Mei Er would be able to cultivate to the peak of the fourth stage realm. But when Wang Sheng really wanted to leave, Mei Er couldn't hold it in. She had a lot of things that she wanted to say to Wang Sheng, but as a lady, she was too reserved to say it out. Don't think that she seemed to be very open when she tempted Wang Sheng, but her heart had always been guarded for one person. Wang Sheng didn't reject her, and Mei Er could feel that. But not knowing why, Wang Sheng didn't seem to accept her. This made Mei Er feel defeated. She wanted to ask him directly why, but she knew that the moment she asked, perhaps it would be the time when Wang Sheng would leave her completely. So she didn't ask. Now that Wang Sheng was about to leave, Mei Er couldn't say out, couldn't ask, so she could only hug him tightly as she cried silently. Wang Sheng wasn't made of stone. How could Wang Sheng not see Mei Er's feelings for him? But in Wang Sheng's heart, he couldn't let go of the girl of his dreams. Even if he couldn't bear to, Wang Sheng still had to leave. Gently patting Mei Er's shoulder, Wang Sheng comforted Mei Er in a gentle voice. Don't worry, I'm only going to take a stroll in the land of 1,000 extremities and conveniently go to the underground palace to refine some elixirs. I'll be back soon. Embarrassed, Mei Er left Wang Sheng's embrace and looked at Wang Sheng with teary eyes. She nodded slightly. If there's any trouble with business, look for Uncle Su across the street. He's taken our family's share. He can't just take the money and do nothing. Fearing that Mei didn't want to trouble Uncle Su, Wang Sheng added, don't be afraid to trouble him. The more trouble, the better. Mei nodded, but she still didn't dare to look up at Wang Sheng. When I come back, I hope that the beauty salon you and Mrs. Su will be open for business. Wang Sheng added another mission to Mei so that she wouldn't let her imagination run wild. With something to do, she wouldn't let her imagination run wild. I got it. Mei agreed. However, she secretly swore to herself that when Wang Sheng returned, she would definitely give him a big surprise. Chapter 532. When Wang Sheng was dragged away by the old Taoist, he didn't hide his tracks. Many people saw it. Only then did everyone realize that Wang Sheng, the Marquis of Everlasting Victory, who they thought would be severely injured by the legendary assassin of the Godly Might prison, was actually unharmed. This was worth pondering. If the legendary assassin of the Godly Might prison didn't do anything to Wang Sheng, then what about that legendary assassin? Some people knew that the revered one had appeared, but as far as they knew, the revered one was still safe and sound in the Godly Might prison. In that case, the bustle in the capital city was a little interesting. Nobody actually knew what had happened. Those who knew what had happened were all like mutes and didn't say anything. This made everyone who was watching Wang Sheng even more confused. When they saw the old Taoist appear with Wang Sheng, they immediately followed them carefully. However, these guys only followed them until they left the city. After they left the city, these guys who were following them were inexplicably knocked out and thrown to a corner. From the beginning to the end, they didn't know who had knocked them out. Some suspected that it was the people from the Laojun temple. However, everyone had this thought, and no one dared to take further action. The Laojun temple usually developed quietly on its own and didn't get involved in various political affairs. However, this didn't mean that it was easy to bully. Who would dare to touch the whiskers of a tiger if the old shadow eunuch was mentioned? The news that Wang Sheng was safe and sound finally spread. Everywhere received the news, including Song Yin in the Kingdom of Song. After receiving the news, Song Yin heaved a sigh of relief. The worries that she had been worrying about for the past few days finally vanished. Wang Sheng, who had hurriedly returned from the Laojun temple, immediately made arrangements to leave. This made many people feel much more relaxed. The happiest ones were probably the crown prince of King Changshan and the other two. Ever since the three of them had set their sights on Qian Shengyuan, the three of them started to have bad luck. They were suppressed by Steward Li, punished by the emperor, and so on. If that was the case, it would be fine. At most, he would have to kneel in front of Qian Shengyuan's door and be scolded by those scholars for 3 days. However, things did not develop this way. During the 3 days that they were punished to kneel in front of the Qian Shengyuan palace, the three of them became the stepping stones for those scholars who were not afraid of the rich and powerful. More and more people discovered that this was simply a shortcut to fame. Hence, more and more scholars fought to be the first to scold and beat up the crown prince and the other two for glory. Even though 3 days had passed and the three of them had been locked up in a mansion to reflect on their mistakes, those people were not done yet. All kinds of denunciations were written by those scholars and then distributed in all kinds of literary conferences. Those who wrote well were even recommended to several prestigious scholars. These grand scholars were not easy to deal with. If they wanted to fight for their reputation, they naturally had to find this kind of person who would be pushed by everyone when the wall was down. Even though the three of them had been locked up in their own homes to reflect on their mistakes, they did not let them off easily. Every 3 to 5 days, a grand scholar would come to the crown prince and the others with dozens of denunciations. He would call the crown prince and the others to stand in the living room and read the denunciations. Then, he would scold them, and those with bad tempers would probably beat them up a few times. After scolding and beating them, King Changshan had to treat them well with good food and drinks, and then respectfully send them out. If these scholars did not serve them well, King Changshan's reputation would become more and more unbearable after he left, so he did not dare to be careless. The crown prince and the other two simply wanted to cry, but had no tears. When would such days come to an end? Finally, they heard that Wang Sheng had appeared safe and sound, and that he would soon leave the capital. This made those scholars calm down a lot. What they were worried about now was whether Qian Shengyuan would still be able to get the works of the great grandmaster of the Pavilion of Delicacy after Shengho left the capital. It should be known that Qian Xingyuan had been open for almost a month, and he had sold a total of 3 batches of goods, 10 sets each time. Apart from the paper, which had a relatively large supply, the other products were all sold in limited quantities. But Qian Xingyuan's products were really good. They were exquisitely made, exquisitely designed, and had a profound meaning. Moreover, all the parts that could be inlaid with formations were inlaid with formations. When used to write in the study, it was simply like a divine tool. Those who were usually impatient and had many thoughts would be able to quickly calm down when they picked up the brush. Whether it was writing or writing, their minds would be several times clearer than usual. They could sit still and think. Whether it was studying or working, they could simply get twice the result with half the effort. Moreover, apart from a few rare items, the rest of the things that Qian Xingyuan sold could be played with. Many people who bought them would personally wash and play with them every day, and they would be reluctant to part with them. Even if it was just a small plaything used for writing, it seemed to be more precious than gold, silver, or jewelry. The set of things designed by Wang Sheng had really captured the hearts of these scholars. This was an elegant stationery, and it was much better than those vulgar yellow and white things. It wasn't just one person who said this, but all the people who had bought those exquisite items. This was not a lie. Moreover, it was said that even the current emperor had bought a set and used it every day, even when he was reading memorials to the throne. As for the emperor's sword, he carried it everywhere he went. Almost every time he appeared in front of the court officials, he would carry the emperor's sword with him. It could be said that Qian Xingyuan's exquisite items were now a symbol of status. Living in the capital, if one didn't have such an item, one would be embarrassed to go out and greet others. In this way, the scholars naturally cared about Qian Xingyuan's supply. At the same time, those businessmen hoped to snatch a piece of meat from Qian Xingyuan's mouth. In this short period of 1 month, countless merchants had contacted the Pavilion of Delicacy. Shopkeeper Chun, who was in charge of external affairs, was already extremely busy. No one knew how Wang Sheng had gotten in touch with the great masters of the Pavilion of Delicacy, but everyone was now looking forward to Wang Sheng leaving the capital. Without Wang Sheng's interference, the success rate of snatching food might be higher. Amidst all kinds of emotions, Wang Sheng swaggered out of the capital. Of course, there were people following him, but everyone knew that it was just an act. If Wang Sheng didn't want people to follow him, no one would be able to follow him. After confirming Wang Sheng's direction, the people who were following him basically knew where Wang Sheng was going. That direction was clearly the border between the outskirts of the capital and the land of Thousand Despair. The last time Wang Sheng had led the imperial family into the land of Thousand Despair, he had gone in that direction. If they really entered the land of Thousand Despair, it would be even more impossible to follow Wang Sheng. Many people understood this. So, after confirming Wang Sheng's direction, they turned around and left without saying anything. However, there were still people who didn't give up and followed him. Chapter 533. In the spirit world, anyone who knew about Wang Sheng basically knew that he was the ancestor of the place of Thousand Extremes. No one was more suited to the place of Thousand Extremes than him. Therefore, no one would be stupid enough to follow Wang Sheng if they knew he was going to the place of Thousand Extremes. Wang Sheng was happy and went straight to the place of Thousand Extremes. He arrived at the edge of the place of Thousand Extremes and looked around to make sure there was no one around. Then, he strolled into the place of Thousand Extremes leisurely. Wang Xinglai had agreed to meet the people from the Laojun Temple in this area. However, in order to keep it a secret, the people from the Laojun Temple had entered the lands of Thousand Despair from another direction and were waiting for Wang Xinglai somewhere inside. Once he entered the place of Thousand Extremes, Wang Sheng didn't stop and went straight to the appointed place. But very soon, Wang Sheng discovered that someone was following him. When he was outside, Wang Sheng's eyes and ears might not be able to capture all the tracking information. However, once he entered the place of Thousand Extremes, it was Wang Sheng's world. Wang Sheng discovered that there was a super expert following him all of a sudden. He was definitely a super expert, and it was obvious that he had been following him all the way from outside. The scary thing was that when he was outside, Wang Sheng actually didn't notice that he was being followed. This could only mean that the cultivation of the other party was far higher than his. Without batting an eyelid, Wang Sheng had almost reached the rendezvous point with the Laojun Temple's experts. Only then did Wang Sheng stop. He used the 9 syllables Buddhist incantation to alert those expert Taoist priests while quietly waiting for the experts who were chasing after him. The other party kept a distance from him and didn't forcefully chase after him. Either he had other intentions, or he didn't want him to misunderstand. When the other party appeared in front of Wang Sheng recognized him at first glance. The legendary realm killer from the godly might prison, the World Venerate. Seeing that it was the World Venerate, Wang Sheng's gaze suddenly sharpened. He also quietly made some sounds that ordinary people couldn't hear. In the surrounding forest, countless insects and ants began to move and slowly gathered in this direction. Seeing Wang Sheng standing under a big tree not far away and looking at him, how could the world sovereign not know that he had been exposed? However, no other expression could be seen on his face. He was very calm. Instead, he looked around and his pupils shrank. Then, he stared at Wang Sheng, who was standing there calmly. Someone of your age and cultivation base is the only one who could discover me. The moment the world-honored one opened his mouth, it was still the same tone he used in the Chongqing Marquis' residence. According to Wang Sheng's analysis, this was an assassin with extreme pride and self-respect. However, if you think that these insects are a threat to me, then you're wasting your time. Although the revered one of the world's tone didn't contain any disdain or contempt, the meaning between the lines was clearly expressed. There's no need to threaten me. It's enough as long as they can stop you for a while. Wang Sheng smiled and replied casually. His tone was as if he was chatting with an acquaintance. So far, the World Venerate was the first to discover the movements of these hidden insects in the grounds of despair. He was indeed a legendary assassin. His vigilance was extraordinary. Other experts had also noticed the movements of these insects, but none of them were this vigilant. They didn't believe that these insects would suddenly attack. The World Venerate was the first to notice this. Are you waiting for those experts to come and help? The World Venerate wasn't in a hurry. His pride didn't allow him to immediately ask what he wanted to know when facing a junior like Wang Sheng. Even if he wanted to ask, he had to wait until he completely suppressed Wang Sheng. Obviously, cutting off all of Wang Sheng's escape routes was the method the World Venerate wanted to use. The World Venerate once said that the godly might prison wouldn't attack me again. Bloodblade also said something similar. I wonder if the godly might prison's words still count? Wang Sheng didn't answer his question at all. Of course it counts. The World Venerate replied resolutely. Who do you think I am? Would I swallow the words that I personally said? That's good. Wang Sheng smiled. Then his expression changed, and he scolded. Then tell me, are you an idiot? If I were waiting for them to come and help, why would I stop and wait for you? Can't I just go and meet up with them? Can't you see that? Are you muddle-headed? It had been a long time since the world sovereign had met someone like Wang Sheng who was so rude to him and even directly scolded him. He was stunned on the spot. Other than experts like old ancestor Ling Su, who wouldn't pee in their pants when they heard the name of the godly might prison. Even if they felt that they had the strength to resist, they still had to be careful. They were afraid that they would make a mistake and give the World Venerate an opportunity. When had the World Venerate ever seen someone like Wang Sheng who didn't put him in his eyes? Especially before Wang Sheng scolded him. He even specifically asked if the World Venerate wouldn't attack. Even though he was scolded, the World Venerate didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Firstly, he said he wouldn't attack. If the World Venerate scolded him, he would be too embarrassed to attack. Secondly, Wang Sheng's scolding was reasonable. He had already stopped and waited for Wang Sheng. Why did the World Venerate still feel that Wang Sheng was waiting for an expert to come and help? He even wanted to threaten Wang Sheng. In the end, Wang Sheng made him have no choice but to say he wouldn't attack. How could he threaten Wang Sheng in the future? On the one hand, you said you wouldn't attack, but on the other hand, you wanted to follow me secretly. What do you mean? Wang Sheng didn't wait for the world venerate to respond and asked again. Originally, I just wanted to ask you a question, but now I'm a bit more interested in you. The world venerate's eyes flashed brighter than before. You won't attack me. Why should I answer your question? Wang Sheng smiled and asked curiously. The world venerate was startled. Then, he suddenly realized that he couldn't answer this question. Yes, he couldn't threaten Wang Sheng. Why would Wang Sheng answer his question? In the past, when a legend realm expert like the world venerate went out, the people he came into contact with would either be scared out of their wits and answer whatever he asked because they admired the reputation of the world venerate. It was as if they had seen their idol. The world venerate had never met a troublemaker like Wang Sheng. He suddenly realized that if Wang Sheng didn't answer his question, he suddenly didn't have a good solution. There was a group of experts not far away. The world venerate wasn't afraid, but he also didn't want to fight them head-on. There were hundreds of people, not just one or two. Moreover, there were experts of similar level. Although the world venerate was powerful, he wasn't that arrogant. However, he wasn't satisfied if he didn't ask clearly. I can answer your question. The world venerate thought about it and decided to talk to this interesting young man. Let's exchange. Chapter 534. What if I'm not willing? Wang Sheng asked quickly. Then I might go back on my words. The world supreme smiled. Hearing this, Wang Sheng shook his head in disdain. You're already at this realm, yet you want to learn from others and change your style? There's no chance. The world supreme was stunned and couldn't say anything. You want to know how Bloodblade died? Wang Sheng asked without waiting for the world supreme to say anything. Now wasn't the time when Bloodblade just died. At that time, the world supreme might not be able to control himself and make a move. After so many days, even if his master wanted to make a move again, he wouldn't kill Wang Sheng without an answer. This wasn't hard to guess. The world supreme wasn't surprised and nodded directly. Then tell me, what's in the core of the ground of despair? Wang Sheng didn't waste time and threw out his question. You want to know this? The world supreme was a little surprised this time. Don't you want to know why the godly might prison made a move against you? Why didn't they make a move against you? A boring reason. Wang Sheng shook his head without hesitation. It's nothing more than a debt of gratitude that they owed in the past and have to repay it now. So what if I know but don't know? Don't you want to know who wants to kill you? The world supreme asked again. Wang Sheng shook his head again. Nothing more than those few. One more or one less doesn't make a difference. The world supreme was speechless. He thought he could exchange a simple answer for the secret of killing Bloodblade. However, Wang Sheng didn't fall for it. You should know more about the core of the ground of despair than me. Why are you asking me? The world supreme had no choice but to tell the truth. Doesn't your godly might prison have any internal records? Wang Sheng didn't give up and continued to ask with a frown. Let's change the question. The world supreme said helplessly, the godly might prison is only an assassin organization. Unless it's related to the target, there won't be any information. Even if it's related to the target, it won't take long for it to be destroyed. With that, Wang Sheng understood. The godly might prison was a qualified assassination organization. They must have destroyed the target's information because the target was already dead. In that case, the godly might prison might not even know what was in the core of the land of thousand despair. Wang Sheng pondered for a moment and asked again, since you're also a legendary expert, then tell me, what's the difference between you and the Song family's legendary experts who advanced in the land of 1,000 extremities? The revered one's performance was much stronger than those 9th stage realm experts from the Song family. Wang Sheng knew that there was definitely a difference in realm, but as for how big the difference was, Wang Sheng wasn't very clear. Originally, Wang Sheng could just casually ask old Taoist Ling Su and the rest about this question, but thinking that old Taoist Ling Su might not have met those 9th stage realm top exponents from the Song family, so he didn't ask. Since the revered one was here, he could ask him. Speaking of this question, before the revered one could answer, his face was already filled with disdain. Obviously, he had met those experts from the Song family before. Are they considered legendary experts? The revered one said disdainfully. At most, They relied on the aura in the land of thousand despair to stimulate those brats who had just crossed the threshold. Do you know how long it took me to break through from the peak of the 8th stage realm? Wang Sheng shook his head. If he knew, then he knew. If he didn't know, then he didn't know. There was no need to pretend to be mysterious. A whole 10 years. The world-honored one only asked this to let Wang Sheng cooperate. He wasn't really waiting for him to answer. During this period, I killed more than 68 stage targets and dozens of powerful demonic beasts. I don't know how many times I experienced life and death. But they only stayed in the land of thousand despair for more than 10 years and turned from 3rd or 4th stage kids into 9th stage experts. Tell me, what's the difference? Insufficient accumulation? Wang Sheng asked. Obviously. The revered one nodded and said not just that. Their experience, foresight, and human heart are lacking by more than 1 or 2 points. Do you really think that being stimulated in the land of thousand despair and killing a few demonic beasts to break through are comparable? Listening to the revered one's words, Wang Sheng recalled a phrase from Earth called high score but low ability. He couldn't help but ask, similar to those bookworms who only know how to read books. Yes, that's about it. The revered one was worried about not finding a suitable word to describe it. Once Wang Sheng mentioned it, he immediately felt like he had found a confidant. Their cultivation is there, but their realm isn't there. But with their current foundation, they can also become true experts after a few years of training outside. After criticizing them, the revered one began to praise. After all, their starting point is high, and the training in the land of thousand despair isn't useless. In another 1 or 2 years, they can probably reach the 9th stage, intermediate stage. By then, they won't be easy to deal with. What realm is Bloodblade in? Wang Sheng asked again. Consider this question as a gift to you. The revered one glanced at Wang Sheng strangely before answering. It's the 9th stage, intermediate stage I mentioned just now. After a pause, the revered one said calmly, it's your turn. Bloodblade probably has some relationship with you. He learned all your techniques. Wang Sheng didn't refuse anymore and said to the revered one, he even learned how to fight openly. He's my disciple. The revered one replied expressionlessly. No wonder Bloodblade's behavior was exactly the same as the revered one. Moreover, after Bloodblade's death, the revered one almost killed Wang Sheng on the spot and didn't hesitate to break his promise of not attacking Wang Sheng. It doesn't matter how he died. Wang Sheng looked at the revered one's eyes and felt his inner emotions. He said slowly, what really killed him was his arrogance. Arrogance? The revered one didn't understand and frowned. As an assassin, and an assassin with a mission, the most important thing to do is to kill the target by any means necessary. Wang Sheng explained, your identity, Bloodblade's identity, is just an assassin. You've never been a chivalrous hero. An assassin is an assassin. As long as you kill the target, it's fine. But look at what you guys did in the capital. You showed yourself and alerted the experts of the Laojun Temple and the imperial family. At the same time, you alerted me. Wang Sheng said to the revered one with dissatisfaction, not only did you not use the most efficient method to kill me, but you also gave me enough time to prepare and set up a fatal trap for you. After we met, you didn't act immediately. Instead, you talked back and forth, giving me enough time to act. Wang Sheng's disdain seemed to come from the bottom of his heart. Besides arrogance, I can't think of why he dared to do this. Last time, I could burn him to death. In another place, I could drown him. In another place, I could even poison him. As long as you continue to maintain this kind of self-righteous arrogance. Chapter 535. Can an assassin be open and above board? The world's venerable's breathing became a lot heavier. Perhaps because he heard Wang Sheng's evaluation of Blood Knife, he was very unconvinced. Of course you can. Wang Sheng replied without hesitation. It's your right to use whatever method you want, but don't be so naive to think that the other party will die as long as you make a move. To sum it up, Blood Knife actually made the mistake of thinking that he was infallible and arrogant, as Wang Sheng had said. He thought that as long as he made a move, Wang Sheng would definitely die. In order to be open and above board, he gave Wang Sheng enough time to prepare and make a move. In the end, he died in Wang Sheng's hands. Not to mention Blood Knife, even the world's venerable had made the same mistake. Perhaps this is how you've survived all these years. Wang Sheng was not afraid of provoking the revered one of the world. He said very directly, "But if you really fight against those new legendary masters of the Song family, you don't need many, just two. With your current mentality, you will definitely die." Perhaps those new legendary masters of the Song clan had this and that problem, but it couldn't be denied that they had really reached this level of cultivation. This was something that the world's venerable admitted. Moreover, they had been honed in the land of 1,000 despair for more than 10 years and developed a tacit understanding of cooperation. If the world's venerable couldn't kill all of them in one blow, he would always be held back by someone else, giving another person a chance to kill him. In the end, the world's venerable was too arrogant and self-righteous. He thought that as long as he made a move, everything would be settled. The success of these past few decades had also given him this kind of illusory confidence. Having confidence was good, but having such confidence no matter who you faced was the road to death. The world's venerable was sullen. Although he felt that what Wang Sheng said made sense, and that Blood Knife was indeed arrogant enough to give Wang Sheng all kinds of opportunities to make arrangements, what did Wang Sheng mean after that? Comparing him to the trash of the Song clan? Do you really think that I don't dare to make a move against you? The world's sovereign's expression changed. He turned to Wang Sheng and threatened, "You just reminded me that as an assassin, I have to kill my target at all costs. If I kill you now, it's also in line with your method, right?" Of course, Wang Sheng wasn't afraid at all as he retorted, "But I have to remind you, don't be so arrogant as to think that I will definitely die as long as you make a move. You and Blood Knife made the same mistake and gave me enough time to prepare." With Wang Sheng's reminder, the world-honored one remembered that he wasn't the one who had been following Wang Sheng and forcing him into a dead end. It was Wang Sheng who had arrived here first and then stopped to wait for him. In other words, during this period of time, Wang Sheng had probably made some arrangements here that he had yet to discover. "I've already locked your aura. Do you think I don't know what you've done?" Of course, the world-honored one wouldn't show weakness in front of Junior like Wang Sheng, so he immediately sneered and retorted. However, as soon as the world-honored one finished this sentence, he suddenly discovered that Wang Sheng had disappeared. He didn't disappear in front of his eyes. He was still standing there, but Wang Sheng's aura had disappeared from his senses. This also meant that if he closed his eyes, he wouldn't be able to discover Wang Sheng's whereabouts. How is this possible? The world-honored one was confident because he felt that he had locked onto Wang Sheng's aura. He could almost sense where Wang Sheng went and what he did. However, as soon as Wang Sheng's aura disappeared, he immediately realized that something was wrong. As if it was instinct, the world-honored one retreated as fast as lightning. If it was in the past, facing such a threat, the world-honored one would definitely sneer and punch the person who threatened him to death. However, Blood Knife's lesson was just a few days ago, and Wang Sheng's warning was just now. Even the world-honored one couldn't ignore it. At this time, the cause of Blood Knife's death was no longer important. Just as Wang Sheng had said, Blood Knife was so arrogant that he thought he would definitely succeed. He gave Wang Sheng enough time to prepare, and Wang Sheng could use all kinds of methods to kill him. In Wang Sheng's situation at that time, the world-honored one had no less than 5 methods to kill the world-honored one, and he didn't even need to do anything himself. Now, he was standing at the place Wang Sheng had chosen. Not to mention anything else, there were tens of thousands of poisonous insects in the surroundings. Even if the revered one of the world didn't care about these things, who knew what else Wang Sheng had set up? Wang Sheng's aura could disappear from his senses at any time and mislead him. The world-honored one didn't want to make the same mistake as Blood Knife. "I don't have many life-saving methods, and I don't want to use them on you." Wang Sheng's voice reached the world-honored one's ears from where he was standing. "Goodbye." Following Wang Sheng's words, the world-honored one only felt that there were at least 10,000 pairs of eyes staring at him. He was shocked again. His figure retreated again, and in the blink of an eye, he was at least 20 feet away from Wang Sheng. The dense forest immediately blocked the line of sight between the two. The surrounding area was emitting waves of murderous intent. The world-honored one had roamed the world for so many years, but he had never found any place so dangerous. It was indeed the land of thousand extremes, worthy of its name. The world-honored one got the answer he approved. Moreover, he didn't have any intention of attacking Wang Sheng, so he definitely wouldn't put himself in danger and fight with Wang Sheng. The only solution was to leave immediately. Of course, this was only one of the reasons. Another real reason was that Wang Sheng had made some kind of arrangement on the other side, and that group of dozens of experts had already rushed over. Among them, the most powerful three were all in the legendary realm, and they had already arrived less than 10 feet away from Wang Sheng. With so many experts, could the world-honored one stay and wait for death? Retreating was the only choice. This was also the explanation the world-honored one gave to himself. He couldn't say that he was scared by Wang Sheng, could he? Whoosh! Several vines in the forest behind Wang Sheng were pushed aside, and 3 white-haired old Taoists flew out. Seeing Wang Sheng standing under the tree unscathed, the 3 heaved a sigh of relief. Elder, who was that expert just now? One of the old Taoists looked in the direction where the world-honored one retreated and asked with lingering fear. The aura of that expert was too terrifying. Even if the 3 of them joined forces, they would only be able to fight to a draw. If they were one step late and the opponent took advantage of them, and something happened to Wang Sheng, they wouldn't know how to explain it to the Grand Abbey Dean and Ancestor Ling Su. The world-honored one of the godly might prison. When Wang Sheng said the name of the world-honored one, the 3 old Taoists were even more shocked. How did he run so fast? The 3 old Taoists certainly knew the world-honored one, and they also understood that the world-honored one wouldn't be scared away by them. I was just scaring him. Wang Sheng smiled and did not say anything else. Chapter 536. How could he scare off the godly might prison's revered one? How is that possible? At least, the 3 old Taoists didn't believe it. However, there was indeed an expert who left at a high speed just now. Even the 3 of them didn't think they could catch up with him. In that case, there was only one conclusion for the 3 old Taoists. That person wasn't the revered one, but some unknown expert. Wang Sheng didn't explain. How else could he explain? Drag the old Taoist to catch up with the revered one, and let him tell them personally that he was the revered one? The Taoist priests who entered the grounds of Thousand Despair had been waiting for a day. During this day, they had no choice but to separate some of them to take turns to use the 9 symbolic words in order to drive away the insects that kept coming. They didn't dare to stop for even a moment. Otherwise, the insects would crazily enter the crowd because of the sound-absorbing effect of the 9 symbolic words. It couldn't be helped. These Taoist priests had only cultivated the 9 symbolic words for a few days. They couldn't be compared to Wang Sheng, who had been strengthened by the Paleo transformation. Not to mention the current Wang Sheng. Even Wang Sheng couldn't drive away the insects when he first used the wholeness formula and formation formula of the 9 symbolic words. Therefore, it was quite hard for him to resist. The 3 old Taoist priests had sufficient cultivation, so they arrived the fastest. However, they were already exhausted from being harassed by the insects that could be seen everywhere. Anyone who was constantly concentrating would probably collapse after a long time. Even the revered one wouldn't be able to do it. Otherwise, the grounds of Thousand Despair would have been turned into a sieve by these legendary experts. Once Wang Sheng arrived, the group of Taoist priests could finally heave a sigh of relief. Wang Sheng only used the wholeness formula to drive away all the insects from the crowd. Just this alone made all the selected Taoist priests admire him from the bottom of their hearts. They looked at Wang Sheng in a different light. Although Wang Sheng was now the most senior layman elder in the Laojun Temple, and all the disciples had to pay their respects to him, Wang Sheng's status was not high. However, those old Taoists who had direct contact with Wang Sheng and had been enlightened by Wang Sheng in the Buddhist incantation of 9 syllables had always respected Wang Sheng. However, those young experts who had never been in contact with Wang Sheng did not have that kind of respect. At this moment, Wang Sheng's all-character formula, which came from the same source as them, made those arrogant young experts see the gap between them and their shortcomings. At the very least, his attitude towards Wang Sheng's cultivation of the Buddhist incantation of 9 words had become more sincere. Leading the old, middle-aged, and young experts of the Laojun Temple, Wang Sheng began to cut his way through the thistles and thorns all the way to the ruins of the alchemy sect that he had visited last time. Only someone like Wang Sheng, who was very good at positioning and map recognition, could enter the place of despair from a completely different direction and accurately find the destination. They were all experts who could use the Buddhist incantation of 9 syllables and belonged to the Laojun Temple. Basically, none of them had any ill intentions, and they moved very quickly. It could be said that they did not waste a single bit of time on the road. It only took them about 20 days to reach the ruins from the capital city, which was twice as far as Worry-Free City. The traces left behind by Bao Qin Yutang's men were still there. The stone door of the underground palace was still tightly shut. The hole that Wang Sheng dug out from the edge was also still there. Everything showed that no one had come here since Wang Sheng and Meyer left. Clean up the top first. Wang Sheng commanded the team, and everyone began to clean up the ruins. Wang Sheng easily drove away the insects and other things, emptying out a large safe area. The Taoist priests quickly cleaned up the vegetation that had been growing here for nearly 500 years. This area was originally the site of a sect. Even if the buildings had collapsed, the outline of the foundation was still there. Everyone quickly cleaned up a large open space with the entrance of the underground palace as the center. There is no need to build a heavily protected base like the camp in the Imperial Treasure House. As long as the entrance of the underground palace was protected, most people could live underground. At the entrance, there was a place that could accommodate up to 12 people to live safely. The formation stones that were brought played a great role. After arranging a protective formation, everyone took local materials and used a batch of thick trees to enclose a large courtyard with a circumference of about 100 meters. The courtyard walls were those tree trunks, and the tree trunks were inlaid with hundreds of formation stones. Once activated, the entire courtyard would be firmly enveloped. Even the top would not be exposed. In the courtyard, there were several trees with huge canopies that did not move. This could block the line of sight from above and would not be discovered by some flying monsters. Then everyone began to build rooms in the courtyard. These rooms were also made of local materials and wood. Among the Taoist masters who came in with Wang Sheng, there were more than 30 people who were good at construction. They were proficient in bricks, tiles, wood, and stone. In less than 3 days, everyone built several large wooden houses, divided into various functions, enough for everyone to live in. It was not until this time that Wang Sheng opened the door of the underground palace. This door was also covered by a large wooden house. In the wooden house, a ventilation formation was directly inlaid. After opening the door, people began to breathe in. As for the passageway that Wang Sheng had dug out last time, it had been completely covered up. The exposed area would affect the formation inside, and at the same time, it would also increase many uncertain factors. The ventilation took 3 days and 3 nights, until there was almost no smell of sulfur. Wang Sheng then went down. Even so, to be on the safe side, Wang Sheng still used the row formula to fuse with the array formation one by one. Along the way, he carefully entered the area controlled by the array formation at the bottom of the passageway. Only then did he send the signal for everyone to go down. Everyone had no time to marvel at the size of the entire underground palace. They had to face another problem. There was only one entrance here, and there were no other ventilation vents. From a safety point of view, this was very unwise. If someone blocked the door like last time, it was basically like catching a turtle in a jar. The best solution was to open another entrance from another direction and add a few ventilation vents at the same time. The constant release of volcanic gas was harmful to health after all. This was not Wang Sheng's task, but the work of those Taoist priests. The reason why there were more than 30 people out of 100 who knew how to make skills was to complete this. Before setting off, Wang Sheng had talked about this with the Grand Abbey Dean and old ancestor Ling Su, so the preparation was very complete. There were more than a dozen ventilation arrays. At this point, the masters of the Taoist sects were completely satisfied. It could be said that this underground palace had completely belonged to the Grand Supreme Lord Temple. Whether it was cultivation or alchemy, the two areas above and below the ground were enough. The rest was to constantly improve this underground space, then increase the level of safety above the ground, and then bring more masters of the Grand Supreme Lord Temple to cultivate. As for Wang Sheng himself, he began another cultivation, observing alchemy. Chapter 537. Wang Sheng had learned a lot about identifying medicinal herbs, those that were not poisonous but had a distinct smell. Wang Sheng had also sniffed them to his heart's content, but he was only able to solidify 3 of the cauldron's legs in his origin spirit space. The rest of the cauldron's body was still in an illusory state. However, there was one time when Wang Sheng picked up a pill and lightly sniffed it. He suddenly discovered that it seemed that this medicinal fragrant pill was also able to solidify a part of his cauldron. Therefore, for a few days, Wang Sheng had almost sniffed all the common pills, and the cauldron's body had finally solidified a little more than an inch. For Wang Sheng, this was a huge progress. At least he had found the direction of his current efforts. Then, Wang Sheng discovered an even more powerful method to enhance his origin spirit. When Taoist priest Qing Ling was teaching Wang Sheng how to identify medicinal herbs, he once again encountered a kind of colorless and odorless medicinal herb, which was handled very poorly, so he casually used his unique method to deal with it once. In the process of dealing with it, Wang Sheng smelled a faint smell of medicinal juice. Yet, this faint scent caused a large portion of Wang Sheng's massive cauldron to solidify. If dealing with medicinal herbs could have such a change, then what about alchemy? Wang Sheng casually observed the refining process of a kind of pill from beginning to end. This time, Wang Sheng finally determined that in the refining process of a pill, a variety of medicinal herbs in a variety of different refining methods, and even in the process of mixing them together, was the best way to stimulate Wang Sheng's sense of smell and the best way to enhance the strength of his origin spirit, rather than simply using his sense of smell to smell a single medicinal herb. Why did Wang Sheng insist on coming to this underground palace in the grounds of Thousand Despair? Other than wanting to find a safe place for himself, the main reason was that he wanted to experience the stimulation of the core aura in the grounds of Thousand Despair and cultivate. At the same time, he wanted to borrow the special alchemy environment here to enhance his origin soul. Before he left, Wang Sheng had told Meyer that he was here to refine a batch of pills. That was what old Taoist Ling Su, the Grand Abbey Dean, had said. For this reason, the Grand Abbey Dean had specially arranged for a few Taoist priests to accompany them. They had brought a huge batch of herbs. After settling down the others, Wang Sheng pulled the Taoist priest who was the strongest in alchemy into an alchemy room and asked him to start refining. As Wang Sheng observed the process, he would help out by passing the medicine and adding water to it. The white-bearded old Taoist was not the slightest bit displeased with the request of this extremely high-ranking secular elder. Whatever Wang Sheng said, he would do. However, what made him feel strange was that Wang Sheng did not ask him to refine any particularly profound elixir. Instead, he asked him to refine the elixirs that he knew how to refine, from simple to complex one by one. He did not ask him to refine a lot of each elixir, as long as he could successfully refine one furnace. The old Taoist thought that Wang Sheng wanted to learn alchemy, because Wang Sheng had already learned a lot of medicine identification and processing techniques from Taoist priest Qing Ling. It was not abrupt for him to start learning alchemy now. Moreover, starting from the simplest elixir was also in line with the learning process of going from shallow to deep. However, would it seem that he was not being serious enough if he only watched the refining process of each elixir once? Or could it be that Elder Wang's memory was so outstanding that he could remember everything in one go? Since the Elder wanted to learn, the old Taoist would naturally put in his best effort. He would even carefully explain the reasons for doing so during the refining process, striving to allow Wang Sheng to grasp more alchemy knowledge in a short period of time. The old Taoist was serious in teaching, and so was Wang Sheng. Wang Sheng carefully observed every elixir, and from the old Taoist point of view, Wang Sheng would sniff around the alchemy furnace in an exaggerated manner. Although smelling the medicinal herbs during the refining process could determine part of the progress of alchemy, Wang Sheng's actions were obviously too exaggerated. Ignoring the old Taoist's puzzled gaze, Wang Sheng sniffed the smell of the medicinal herbs mixed during the refining as if he was inhaling the dense qi. Sometimes, he would even occasionally talk to the old Taoist about what kind of medicinal herbs should be mixed with a certain degree of smell. Basically, as long as there were medicinal herbs that could stimulate the smell, Wang Sheng could actually say 80 to 90% of it. This made the old Taoist more and more misunderstand that Wang Sheng was really an alchemy genius. He had only learned from martial uncle Qing Ling for a few months, yet he could say so many things while watching him refine elixirs. The old Taoist then showed his trump card, using all his skills and the most exquisite techniques to demonstrate to Wang Sheng. As he observed more and more types of elixirs being refined, Wang Sheng was pleasantly surprised to find that the giant cauldron in his original soul space had almost become solid piece by piece. When the degree of solidification of the cauldron exceeded a certain level, Wang Sheng finally felt the improvement of his sense of smell. As for Wang Sheng, he had been staying in the underground palace for almost 2 months. It was almost exactly the same as the improvement of his sense of taste and vision. At every stage, there would be a process similar to the tempering of the body with spiritual energy. However, this was not the real tempering of the body with spiritual energy. It was just a fixed strengthening of a certain feeling of Wang Sheng. But this strengthening process, after all, triggered the concentration of spiritual energy, and the effect was exactly the same as the tempering of the body with spiritual energy. Under the envious and comforting gazes of a group of Taoist priests, Wang Sheng experienced a full hour of strengthening his sense of smell and quickly completed the primary strengthening process. Wang Sheng calculated that to complete this primary strengthening, Wang Sheng probably had to observe the effects of nearly 300 kinds of elixirs from the 9 alchemy masters in turn. Combined with the changes in the giant cauldron in his original soul space, it would take more than 1,000 kinds of elixirs to complete the solidification of the entire giant cauldron, just like the requirements of the Tao Tai transformation. If Wang Sheng's calculation was correct, it should be 1,024 kinds. After completing this step, the speed of the several alchemy Taoist priests also slowed down. Basically, all the simple elixirs had been refined at least once. If they wanted to observe more, they would need to refine some more complicated elixirs. As for the complicated elixirs, it was impossible to complete each one in a day or 2. On average, it would take at least 5 or 6 days to complete one. If Wang Sheng wanted to improve in a short period of time, it would not be so easy. In addition, the strengthening of the sense of smell brought another problem. That is, the smell of sulfur in the underground space was becoming more and more pungent. Just like in the past, when his sense of taste was strengthened, ordinary food could not be eaten. For Wang Sheng, this was another happy worry. Fortunately, during the 2 months, the Taoist priests who were responsible for building the other exit had successfully opened up a few air vents and laid out a breathing array. Otherwise, with the time that everyone stayed here, it was inevitable that some slight poisoning symptoms would appear. Therefore, Wang Sheng also made a rule that each time they entered the underground space, they could only stay for half a month at most, and they must go out for a few days. On one hand, it was to avoid long-term breathing of volcanic gas which would cause physical discomfort, and on the other hand, it was to avoid long-term staying in the underground space which would cause psychological problems. Chapter 538. Wang Sheng himself did the same. Every 2 weeks, he would go to the courtyard outside and stay there for a few days. It was the same this time after his sense of smell was strengthened. He had to go out for 2 days. The moment he returned to the surface, a Taoist master who was in charge of guarding secretly told Wang Sheng that there might be trouble on the surface. Because the underground space contained a large amount of sulfur, it was not suitable for drinking or alchemy. Everyone's drinking water and alchemy water had to be fetched from the water source dozens of miles away. The ground of Thousand Extremes was different from other places. Even if they were fetching water, they would need a few Taoists to travel together. Among them, there would definitely be a 9th-stage realm or even 8th-stage realm expert accompanying them. Along the way, they would need to practice the 9 words incantation. This road had been opened by Bao Qing Yutang's men once before. The last time Wang Sheng had escaped danger, he went through it again. This time, he brought the people from the Laojun Temple and over 10 experts with him. He purposely made the road more obvious so that it would be convenient for them to go back and forth. The task of fetching water was rotational. It was not only a task, but also a kind of strengthening cultivation. Walking back and forth dozens of miles in the ground of Thousand Extremes, just the pressure of life and death brought about by the 9 words incantation was enough to make a breakthrough. Previously, when fetching water, everyone just needed to pay attention to whether there were insects or demonic beasts around. But in these 2 days, the strongest expert in the team in charge of fetching water discovered that there seemed to be someone spying on them. After discovering this, the expert Taoist did not make a sound. He was about to go underground to tell Wang Sheng when Wang Sheng happened to come up. Hence, he secretly reminded Wang Sheng. With the protection array and so many experts around, he believed that no one would be willing to barge into this small fortress that was not particularly sturdy. But being spied on was not a solution. It had to be solved. The others did not realize this. The expert spying on them was also very smart. He had not approached the courtyard and only observed secretly on the way to fetching water. So far, no one knew if he was a friend or foe. The opponent was extremely skilled, and his concealment skills were superb. None of the young Taoists who traveled with this expert had discovered him. It was only because this expert had extremely sharp senses that he discovered some clues. However, he did not see the specific whereabouts of those people. "Don't worry, I'll go take a look." Wang Sheng lightly patted the expert's shoulder and said in a low voice. If it was in the past, Wang Sheng's action would have been very disrespectful. A young man patting the shoulder of an old and virtuous old Taoist was too arrogant. However, it didn't matter now. Wang Sheng was a secular elder who was the ancestor of these Taoist priests. It wasn't strange at all for him to pat a junior on the shoulder. No one doubted that Wang Sheng would encounter a great deal of danger alone in the place of Thousand Extremities. Therefore, when Wang Sheng said that he wanted to explore the place of Thousand Extremities by himself, no one doubted or worried about it. The 2 Taoist priests in charge of controlling the formation directly opened the door of the formation in the courtyard. Wang Sheng leisurely left the courtyard and entered the place of Thousand Extremities. The other party was hiding on the path to fetch water. As long as one's disguise was excellent, one didn't need to move and didn't make any sound, ordinary cultivators wouldn't be able to detect him. However, no matter how good the disguise was, it was useless against Wang Sheng's enhanced vision. Wang Sheng could see the difference in the color of the RGB value. He could easily find places that were different from the surrounding environment. There was another skill that others would never be able to imagine, especially for those who hadn't practiced the 9 symbolic words and didn't know how powerful the Xing formula was. They couldn't imagine how a person could detect the surrounding environment just by the vibration of sound waves. Of course, the battle awareness of the little person in the place of Thousand Extremities was an even more heaven-defying skill. It was almost impossible for an expert to hide from Wang Sheng. Even the revered one of the world couldn't do it, let alone those who weren't as good as the revered one of the world. After walking for a few miles, Wang Sheng stopped in his tracks and started to look around. The old Taoist priest was right. There was indeed someone here. Wang Sheng had already discovered traces of human activity outside of the path to fetch water. There were only two groups of people who could accurately locate the alchemy ruins in the place of thousand extremities. Wang Sheng knew that there were only two groups of people. The first group was led by the long-legged, beautiful assassin, Aki. Previously, she had ambushed Wang Sheng at the entrance of the underground palace. The second group was led by the experts of the Song family. One of their legendary realm commanders had led two 8-stage experts down to the underground palace and snatched the life rejuvenation pill. As for Bao Qing Yutang's men, they were all dead. It was impossible for anyone to know the specific location. However, if one were to include the people who could come and go freely in the place of thousand extremities and did not have to worry about the dangerous environment, then it had to be the Song family. The reason why the long-legged, beautiful assassin, Aki's team, was able to ambush Wang Sheng was because Wang Sheng had used the wholeness formula and formation formula to disperse the insects along the way. That was how the pursuing team was able to keep up with Wang Sheng's pace. Without these factors, Aki's team could not even dream of entering this place. Wang Sheng's wholeness formula was effective for 5 days. Now that it had been 2 months since Wang Sheng arrived, it was impossible for them to be following Wang Sheng's footsteps. This meant that Aki and her team could be ruled out. Then, the only possibility left was the Song family. The group of experts from the Song family had lived in the place of thousand extremities for more than 10 years. Who knew how many experts' lives have been sacrificed to hone this group of people's experience and skills in the place of thousand extremities? As long as they did not enter the core area of the place of thousand extremities, they could come and go freely in half of the place of thousand extremities. What was the Song family doing here? Could it be that they were not satisfied with not being able to use the campsite? So they came to snatch this underground palace? Wang Sheng walked forward without batting an eyelid, softly humming some tunes that could not be identified. As he walked, he looked around. His gaze paused on a dense patch of vines for a moment. Wang Sheng smiled in that direction, then continued forward. His gaze shifted to the trunk of another large tree. After pausing for a moment, his gaze shifted to a shrub in front of him. Wang Sheng continued forward with a smile after looking at more than 10 places in a row. After walking for about 2 to 3 li, Wang Sheng finally stopped in his tracks. Looking around, his nose suddenly twitched in an exaggerated manner. Then he smiled and shook his head. He left the small path to fetch water and headed straight for a small hill at the side. On that small hill, Wang Sheng used his leg to sweep out a small piece of land. He sat down on a horizontal log and laughed loudly. "You taste good. Come out and buy me a drink. I knew I wouldn't be able to hide from you in the place of thousand extremities." Wang Sheng's familiar voice rang out not far away. Song Yin turned around from behind a large tree. Stepping on the fallen leaves on the ground, she gracefully walked towards Wang Sheng. After Song Yin appeared, more than 30 figures appeared in the surrounding area, slowly surrounding Wang Sheng. Chapter 539. I knew I wouldn't be able to hide it from you. Song Yin had a smile on her face the entire time. When she spoke, her voice was filled with joy. It was as if she had seen her lover after a long time. Wang Sheng also had a smile on his face as he watched Song Yin slowly walk over. Strangely enough, High Duke Song and Wang Sheng were sworn enemies, but when Wang Sheng faced Song Yin, he didn't feel the slightest bit of enmity. He didn't feel the slightest bit of enmity either. Perhaps it was because the two of them had gone through thick and thin together, or perhaps it was because Song Yin had never done anything wrong to Wang Sheng. In short, the two of them didn't seem to be enemies. When did your nose become so sensitive? Song Yin walked over, and with a wave of her hand, a simple and unadorned wine bottle appeared. She casually tossed it to Wang Sheng. "I've never taken this wine out of my storage ring. I don't smell wine." Wang Sheng smiled as he watched Song Yin sit down in front of him without a care in the world. He replied with a smile, "I smell you. I didn't put on any powder or use any scented towels when I entered the land of thousand despair." Song Yin had just said this when she suddenly realized what Wang Sheng had just said. Her face instantly turned red, and she couldn't say anything else. "Wang Sheng was talking about your scent. not the fragrance on your body. It could only be said that Wang Sheng had smelled Song Yan's youthful body fragrance and nothing else. Long time no see. Wang Sheng opened the wine bottle and took a good whiff. He acted as if he didn't see the experts surrounding him. Long time no see. Song Yan's face was filled with unsuppressed joy. She didn't seem forced or fake at all. She was truly happy. She was happy to see Wang Sheng again. The current Song Yan was even more confident than the last time Wang Sheng had seen her. There was even a dignified air about her, which made her look even more valiant. Her every movement seemed to have a different kind of demeanor. Congratulations. At some point, a cup had appeared in Wang Sheng's hand. After pouring a cup, he handed it to Song Yan, then took out another cup and filled it up. He made a toast to Song Yan and congratulated her. You can tell, Song Yan didn't doubt Wang Sheng's judgment at all. As soon as she heard Wang Sheng congratulate her, she knew what Wang Sheng was talking about. He chuckled as he gulped down the contents of his cup before asking softly. Song Yan's change wasn't limited to her confidence and dignified demeanor. Most importantly, her cultivation base had improved. The last time they met, he was still at the peak of the 5th degree realm, and now he was already at the 6th degree realm. For the time being, Wang Sheng was unable to determine if he had reached the peak of the 6th degree realm, but the 6th degree realm was a definite thing. He didn't know what had happened to Song Yan these days, but as one of the 5 great families and the most powerful vassal state, the Song family's wealth wasn't ordinary. Even if Song Yan's soul was only a 6-star frost turtle, they were still willing to invest a huge amount of resources in her to help her level up. Of course, this was also related to Song Yan being Song Honda's only daughter. The dignified daughter of the Duke of Song, the princess of the Kingdom of Song. Didn't she deserve to enjoy some cultivation resources? When did this happen? Wang Sheng asked. Although he didn't answer Song Yan's question, it was enough to show that he knew about Song Yan's change. Just a month ago, Song Yan said happily. As the two of them spoke, the Song family's experts were already 20 steps away. More than 30 people surrounded Wang Sheng and Song Yan. After Song Yan answered Wang Sheng's question, she looked up and waved her hand. The 30 experts stopped in their tracks and didn't press forward. We need a quiet, undisturbed space to talk, Song Yan instructed one of the experts. Wang Sheng immediately saw a familiar face. It should be the 9th stage realm expert who Song Honda had sent to hunt him down the first time. He rushed toward Song Yan and replied loudly, "Yes, miss." Following that, without saying another word, he led a team of men and turned around to leave. There were only 5 or 6 experts left on the scene who looked like they were in charge of Song Yan's safety. Very awe-inspiring. Wang Sheng praised with a smile. Deep down, he was filled with emotions. In the past, Song Yan had been suppressed by her own elders to the point that she was forced to marry out. But now, with just one sentence, she could command so many 9th, 8th, and 7th degree realm experts. Perhaps this was the key to Song Yan's confidence. When he was on Earth, Wang Sheng also had confidence. That was confidence towards his long-trained skills, towards his own spear skills, towards his own survival ability in the wild, and towards his own modern equipment. But these things in this world actually didn't bring about any qualitative change to his own cultivation. After coming to the soul world, Wang Sheng had experienced the kind of confidence which external objects brought him twice. The first time was when Wang Sheng had 1 million gold coins in Carefree City. From that moment onwards, Wang Sheng knew that he would not make any unnecessary compromises because of the problem of gold coins, nor would he lose some opportunities because of a lack of gold coins. This was the confidence which a sufficient amount of gold coins brought him. The second time was at Exquisite Pavilion, when Wang Sheng discovered that the amount of knowledge he had grasped could instantly kill those grandmasters and senior grandmasters of various industries. That was the confidence which knowledge brought him. This kind of confidence would allow Wang Sheng to have an irresistible momentum in his cultivation, which had an immeasurable effect on his cultivation. What Wang Sheng knew was that huge authority could also give one this kind of confidence in cultivation. With such authority, one could control the life and death of numerous people. With a single command, thousands of experts would be hired by him. This kind of authority, which could direct the country and command the country, was able to let one have an incomparable belief in cultivation. The reason why the Son of Heaven was able to charge from 3rd or 4th degree realm to 7th degree realm in a short few years was because of the authority which he controlled, even if he was just in Son of Heaven who could only manage the capital city. From Song Yan's current state, Wang Sheng could see the confidence which was brought about by this kind of authority in her eyes. Sister Song Yin had been suppressed for so many years and endured various kinds of humiliation. It was good that she could finally be the head of the family. I help you get back the snow candy and refined salt business. Song Yin smiled faintly and suddenly said, I couldn't stand the way Bao Qing Yu Tang treated you. I know that you don't care about those things, so I kindly accepted it. In the future, those will be my private savings. You can just take it. You've already helped me a lot. Wang Xing didn't care about this at all. Not to mention that Song Yin said that she would take it as her private savings. Even if she directly swallowed it without giving him a word, Wang Xing wouldn't be unhappy. Just based on Song Yin's action at that time, how much pressure did Wang Sheng put on the Son of Heaven? Chapter 540. Up until now, Wang Sheng and Song Yin had only been exchanging pleasantries. There was no substance to their conversation, which made the surrounding guards grin. However, both Wang Sheng and Song Yin felt pretty good. With good wine and old friends, even if there was no substance to their conversation, it was still quite tasty. Unfortunately, the only problem between the two of them was Duke Song. This was probably a dead knot that couldn't be untied. It was probably impossible for Duke Song to give up on killing Wang Sheng and apologize to Wang Sheng. It was even more impossible for Wang Sheng and Duke Song to bury the hatchet, or for Wang Sheng to lower his head. Why should I lower my head to you when you want to kill me? Wang Sheng didn't have that kind of hobby. As a result, although Wang Sheng and Song Yin had gone through thick and thin together, they were no longer as close as before. It wasn't that the two of them didn't want to, but the environment forced them to be unable to go any further. Just like now, after meeting, they could only talk about such unimportant topics. They didn't know what to say if they wanted to go deeper. Apart from drinking and exchanging pleasantries, there was nothing else. Actually, Song Yin was already very dignified to be able to not fight. If so many experts swarmed him, even Wang Sheng might not be able to escape. However, for some reason, Wang Sheng seemed to have an inexplicable trust in Song Yin. That was why he dared to walk into the ambush of the Song family experts. The experts from the Song family also admired Wang Sheng very much. At the very least, they thought that they were hiding very well. However, every time Wang Sheng stopped to observe, it was always the place where they were hiding. No matter how well they hid, they could not escape Wang Sheng's discerning eyes. They couldn't help but admire him for this. The two of them talked about what had happened to Wang Sheng in the capital. From Qian Xingyuan to the assassination of the world venerate, Song Yin seemed to want to know the details. Wang Sheng did not hide what had happened. Apart from the detailed method of how he killed Bloodblade, he told him almost everything. In the end, he even told Song Yin about his involvement with the Laojun Temple. Song Yin had already chased all the way here and seen those Taoist priests. How could she not know that Wang Sheng was involved with the Laojun Temple? There was no need to hide these things at all. Moreover, what Wang Xing knew was that not long after he left the capital city, the Grand Abbot announced to the public that Wang Sheng had become a secular elder of the Laojun Temple and had brought 2 peerless divine arts to the Laojun Temple. At the same time, the inventor of the regular script was also Wang Sheng and not Ancestor Ling Su. Song Yin treated the relationship between Wang Sheng and the Grand Master of the Dazzling Pavilion as a story. He had long known that Wang Sheng had a mind full of strange ideas. It was precisely because of these ideas that he could communicate with those grandmasters who could realize these ideas. However, when the news of the assassination by the world-revered one and Bloodblade reached the kingdom of Song Yin was really shocked. When the world-revered one made his move, there were no survivors for the past few decades. Moreover, Wang Sheng did not appear when Qian Xingyuan opened for business. as if to prove this saying. There were a few days when Song Yin almost couldn't help but bring people to the godly might prison to fight with those killers. Finally, he didn't get any specific news. After enduring for a few more days, he finally got the news that Wang Sheng was safe and sound. Wang Sheng was very grateful for Song Yan's concern. Unfortunately, some things couldn't be changed once they happened. It was already good enough that he could drink and chat with Song Yan now. He couldn't ask for more. Hearing Wang Sheng said that he killed Bloodblade, not only Song Yan, even the guards who were listening at the side sucked in a breath of cold air. Bloodblade, a legendary-level assassin from the Divine Might Prison, had actually died in Wang Sheng's hands just like that. Bloodblade had been famous for a long time, but he actually died in the hands of 4th Stage Realm Jr. It was simply unbelievable. In Qian Xingyuan's business, a single set of stationery was worth millions. Listening to the reactions of the customers after using them, and listening to Wang Sheng describe the wonders of each and every one of them, even Song Yan felt as if she had widened her horizons, let alone the guards who had been cultivating in the land of thousand extremities. The two of them were chatting happily when the guard commander who Song Yan had instructed earlier came over to report that a quiet place had been prepared. Wang Sheng was stunned and immediately understood that Song Yan must be looking for him to fulfill his promise. Some things couldn't be spread to the 6 ears, so of course he needed a quiet place. All right, he had long promised Song Yan that when she reached the peak of the 6th stage realm, he would tell her how to raise the level of his soul. Now it was time to fulfill his promise. Perhaps after this time, the two of them might not have the chance to sit and chat like this again. Just thinking about it made him feel unhappy. Lead the way, Song Yan ordered, and the 9th stage realm guard led the way. Wang Sheng didn't resist as he silently followed along. After walking a few hundred feet into an empty space, Wang Sheng was stunned by the scene in front of him. He had thought that these people had just cleared out an empty space and moved to a quiet place. He didn't expect Song Yan to spend so much money to build a house in the middle of the Thousand Despair Grounds. Wang Sheng would have accepted it if they had only used wood or other materials to build the house. While he dare not boast about other things, this place definitely had all kinds of wood. But what did Wang Sheng see? It was a house made of stone. It was ordinary outside the Thousand Despair Grounds, but in the Thousand Despair Grounds, it was like a miracle. The neatly arranged stones were built on the spot, which meant that the stones were cut on the outside and brought into the Thousand Despair Grounds using a storage ring to restore the original house. Just this alone made Wang Sheng speechless. Retreat to a distance of 300 feet. Song Yin quickly ordered, "Kill anyone who dares to enter." "Yes, miss." The leader of the guards in the legendary realm nodded and led the rest of the guards away, guarding the house from afar. "Come in." Song Yin took the lead and pushed open the door to the small house. As she walked, she said, "There's a soundproofing array inside, so we can't hear anything from the outside." Wang Sheng nodded and followed Song Yin into the stone house. As soon as he entered the house, Wang Sheng was stunned again. The outside was bare stone, but inside the house, the walls were covered with the best fabric. There was even a few pieces of furniture inside, including a table and chairs. There was even a suite. The table was obviously a dining table, and there were a few hot dishes on it. He really didn't know how they made it. It was just a few words. Was it worth making such a big deal out of it? Wang Sheng looked at Song Yin, who was walking in front of him. He really couldn't understand a woman's thinking. "Sit." As the host, Song Yin gestured for him to sit. Wang Sheng didn't worry about him. He sat down on the chair with a loud thud. As soon as he sat down, he suddenly felt a sharp pain on the back of his neck, and his whole body stiffened in the chair, unable to move. Chapter 541. With such a sudden change of events, Wang Sheng didn't even have time to react before he was struck. Song Yin was one of the few people that Wang Sheng didn't know how to defend himself. So toward Song Yin, Wang Sheng didn't have any guard up at all. When they entered the house, there were only the two of them, and Wang Sheng didn't sense any killing intent from Song Yin at all. Without any warning, he was actually subdued in one move. In terms of cultivation, Song Yin was already in the 6th stage realm later stage, or even peak, which was an entire realm higher than Wang Sheng. In terms of experience, Song Yin had been cultivating since young and was many times more experienced than Wang Sheng. Using a small silver needle to plot against Wang Sheng, Wang Sheng didn't even have the ability to resist. But until now, Wang Sheng hadn't sensed any killing intent from Song Yin at all, which meant that from the start to the end, Song Yin had no intention to kill Wang Sheng. A silver needle was inserted into the back of Wang Sheng's neck, as if it was controlling all of Wang Sheng's motor functions. Other than his eyelids and lips, which could move slightly, the other parts of Wang Sheng couldn't move at all. Song Yin's beautiful face appeared in front of Wang Sheng, looking at Wang Sheng's sweet smile, but there was a tinge of bitterness in her smile. Under Wang Sheng's gaze, Song Yan's petite body slowly moved closer to Wang Sheng and then stuck tightly onto Wang Sheng's body. Wang Sheng could easily feel Song Yan's imposing bosom. Her tender red lips slowly moved to the side of Wang Sheng's ear as she spoke to Wang Sheng in a low voice. "I've been waiting for this day for a long time. I don't want you to be my fiancé only in name." The hot breath that she exhaled made Wang Sheng feel Song Yan's burning passion. However, in the face of such a charming scene, Wang Sheng could only watch and listen. He could not move at all. Letting go of Wang Sheng, Song Yan picked up a glass of wine from the table and flashed it in front of Wang Sheng. "This is our wedding wine." Song Yan opened her red lips and poured the wine into her mouth. Her red lips slowly approached and gently kissed Wang Sheng's lips. A mouthful of sweet wine flowed into Wang Sheng's mouth along with her lilac tongue. As soon as it entered his mouth, Wang Sheng's perverted taste immediately detected that there was something in the wine. Feeling the hot and dry reaction in his body after this mouthful of wine entered his throat, Wang Sheng immediately concluded that there was an ingredient to arouse one's lust, which was the so-called aphrodisiac. "I know you'll be able to taste it as soon as it enters your mouth, so I can only resort to this." Because of the wine, Song Yan's face was once again flushed red, making her look even more beautiful and alluring. Her eyes were so tender that it seemed as if they could drip water, but her red lips burned like a raging fire, almost melting Wang Sheng. Why did Song Yan do this? Wang Sheng did not understand, but it was obvious that Song Yan had been planning this for a long time. She had even taken into account Wang Sheng's extraordinary taste buds. She was afraid that Wang Sheng would find out, so she made her move before drinking. Wang Sheng really wanted to ask why. Unfortunately, other than passively feeling Song Yan's passion, there was nothing he could do. Song Yan carried Wang Sheng horizontally in her arms, just like how Wang Sheng had carried Song Yan in the Song clan's ground of despair all those years ago. Only, it was the other way around. Carrying Wang Sheng walked into the suite. The moment he entered, he was even more certain that this had been planned for a long time. How was this an ordinary suite? It was simply a wedding room that had been decorated for the night of the wedding. The walls were red, the bed was red, the bedding was red, and even the pillows were red. The whole room was filled with a festive atmosphere, but the two of them were so awkward at the moment. Song Yan did not seem to notice this awkwardness. She gently and carefully placed Wang Sheng horizontally on the bed, carefully adjusting the pillows to make Wang Sheng more comfortable. Then, like a virtuous wife, Song Yan gently helped Wang Sheng take off his boots and arrange them neatly. Then, she helped Wang Sheng unbutton his shirt and slowly took it off. She unbuckled his belt and took off Wang Sheng's pants. After a while, Wang Sheng was naked, and his majestic body lay in front of Song Yan without any cover. What made Wang Sheng a little embarrassed was that it was not only because of the aphrodisiac in the wine, but also because of Song Yan's charming behavior. He actually had a reaction. Song Yan's face was as red as a piece of red cloth, but she still resisted her shyness. She got a basin of hot water from the side, warmed a towel, and began to carefully wipe Wang Sheng's body. After she had wiped Wang Sheng clean, Song Yan put away the towel and stood in front of Wang Sheng. In front of Wang Sheng, she slowly undid her clothes. A well-proportioned, beautiful, smooth, elastic, and delicate body lay naked on top of Wang Sheng. Feeling the heat from Wang Sheng's body, Song Yin seemed to be unable to control herself anymore. She kissed Wang Sheng's lips fiercely and only separated after a long time. I don't want you to be my fiancé in name. Song Yan's eyes suddenly became firm as she looked at Wang Sheng. I want you to be my man, the only man in my life. Looking at the indomitable light in Song Yan's eyes, Wang Sheng did something that Song Yin couldn't believe. He took a long breath and then let out a long sigh. Why do you have to do this? During the time when he was under Song Yan's control, besides watching Song Yan's series of movements, Wang Sheng also used the Buddhist incantation of 9 words to control the muscles on the back of his neck, and bit by bit, he slowly forced the thin silver needle out of his body. In addition to healing injuries, the biggest use of the swordsman formula was actually to control one's body freely. Even though Wang Sheng's nerve center had been cut off by the silver needle and could not be controlled, his muscles could still move slightly under the control of the swordsman formula. It was not until Song Yin climbed on top of him that Wang Sheng finally forced the silver needle to the surface of his body. With his last breath, the silver needle was finally completely forced out, and he immediately regained the ability to move. Humans were not plants or trees. How could they be emotionless? Wang Sheng and Song Yin were comrades who had gone through thick and thin together. Moreover, Song Yin had always treated Wang Sheng as her fiancé. She had made her feelings very clear. Coupled with the aphrodisiac and the stimulation of Song Yan's body, how could Wang Sheng resist this temptation even if he regained the ability to move? It wasn't that Wang Sheng couldn't use the Lin formula to forcibly control himself, but Wang Sheng also knew Song Yan's character. She was a strong woman. If he really reined in at this time, Song Yin would probably only be able to seek death. I've always been a virgin. Feeling Wang Sheng's passionate embrace, Song Yin could only close her eyes shyly and let Wang Sheng press her under his body. She hugged Wang Sheng and whispered in Wang Sheng's ear, "Want me?" Chapter 542. Song Yan's head rested softly on Wang Sheng's arm. Her body seemed boneless as she coiled around Wang Sheng's body. Traces of Wang Sheng's lovemaking could still be seen on her rosy skin. Song Yan's face was filled with satisfaction and happiness. Other than the occasional flash of conflict in her eyes, there was only Wang Sheng's shadow. Wang Sheng was also panting heavily as he lay down to rest. Both of them were people with high cultivation. Even though it was their first time, it still took them more than 2 hours to do it. Wang Sheng suddenly felt like a bastard as he held Song Yan's naked body with his muscular arms. He clearly had the girl of his dreams in his heart, but he was forced to accept Song Yan. What was going on? What happened? Wang Shengkai asked when the two of them were so close to each other and finally calmed down from the peak of excitement. It was impossible for Song Yin to rape Wang Sheng for no reason at all. Something must have happened that Song Yin couldn't control, which was against her will. That was why she made the decision to act first and report later. The only possibility was Duke Song's side. Last time in the underground palace, 3 of Duke Song's expert guards had stolen the life rejuvenation pill that Bao Qing Yutang had always wanted. The life rejuvenation pill must have made Duke Song's body better, which was why he made a decision that Song Yin didn't like. Otherwise, Song Yin wouldn't have done this. It's nothing. I'm just jealous. Song Yan's head was tucked in between Wang Sheng's neck. Her long black hair was scattered on Wang Sheng's chest, making Wang Sheng's chest itch. Song Yin answered casually when she heard Wang Sheng's question. Jealous. Wang Sheng laughed involuntarily. The Song Yin he knew might have resisted violently or staked everything on a single throw, but she would never do something like this out of jealousy. I'm jealous that you're living together with that naturally charming young female shopkeeper. Song Yin tightened her grip on Wang Sheng's hand and replied mischievously, You're my fiancé. I can't let those foxes snatch you away. Wang Sheng smiled and suddenly asked, Is High Duke Song's body much better after taking the life-returning pill? Song Yan's body suddenly stiffened, then slowly relaxed. Her head was still buried in Wang Sheng's neck, so Wang Sheng couldn't see her expression. Feeling Song Yan's warm breath, Wang Sheng waited for a while. Finally, he heard Song Yan's voice. My father's health has improved a lot, so he made some decisions that you didn't like? Wang Sheng asked again, forcing you to marry someone you didn't like. No, Song Yan denied. She didn't wait for Wang Sheng to continue guessing. She took the initiative to answer. He wanted to find some young talents and geniuses from all over the world for me to go on blind dates with. Blind dates? Wang Sheng was stunned. All right, it was a killer weapon that all parents in the world would use. Whether it was on Earth or in the spirit world, it was an extremely powerful and ultimate killer reason. You used to be my fiancé. In the future, you'll be my man. Song Yan tightened her grip on Wang Sheng's hand again, as if she was afraid that he would suddenly disappear. She said, no one can change that, not even my father. How did High Duke Song take the life-returning pill? Wang Sheng asked a question that was completely unrelated to Song Yan's previous answer. Song Yan was stunned by this question. She wanted to ask Wang Sheng, but Wang Sheng had asked it very seriously and didn't sound like he was joking. Could it be that there was something special about the method of taking it? After I took it back, I took it with water. Song Yan raised her head and looked at Wang Sheng. She asked anxiously, after taking it, my body improved a lot. I was in good spirits. I was normal for more than a month. Is there something wrong with that? Wang Sheng furrowed his brows. After drinking a pill, he immediately became as lively as a dragon and a tiger. This kind of thing could only appear in legends or myths. Wasting a life-returning pill like this was really a pity for the hard work of that alchemy sect for 500 years. Then did he vomit and have diarrhea after taking the pill? Was he sweating all over? Wang Sheng asked again. He didn't vomit or have diarrhea, but he sweated for a few days. Seeing that Wang Sheng was asking seriously, Song Yan couldn't be bothered to be intimate with Wang Sheng. She raised her beautiful upper body beside Wang Sheng and asked anxiously, what? Is there a problem? Wang Sheng thought about it for a moment, then asked Song Yan, Little Yin, if there's a pill that allows you to become a legendary expert after taking it, would you believe it? Song Yan nodded. Do you believe it? No. Song Yan shook her head. Cultivation is a matter of months and years. It's not something that can be improved in a day. Unless it's a pill that completely stimulates the body's potential and allows one to explode with the strength of a legendary realm for a short period of time. I'm afraid that once the effects of the pill wear off, I'm afraid that I'll either die or be crippled. At this point, Song Yan's expression changed. Could it be the same for the life-returning pill? Wouldn't her father be in danger? Are you saying that the life-returning pill is the same? Song Yan didn't dare to get the real answer. Even her question became a little hesitant. She was very unhappy that Song Honda was forcing her to do something she didn't want to do. However, she didn't want to see Song Honda seriously injured and die because of this. Fortunately, the life-returning pill isn't that kind of pill. Wang Sheng's answer made Song Yan a little less worried, but she still felt that there was a problem. It's just like cultivation. Getting rid of illness and poison isn't something that can be done in a day, Wang Sheng continued. As the saying goes, illness comes like a mountain collapses and goes away like silk. No matter how good the pill is, it's impossible to get rid of the poison that Song Wugong has accumulated for decades in a short period of time. He's using the wrong method. Song Yan was confused. Didn't the usual way to take the pill was to drink it with water? Was there any other way to take it? However, what Wang Sheng said made sense, and Song Yan couldn't help but doubt it. Then how should I take it? Song Yan asked hurriedly. Wang Sheng was silent for a while. Song Yan waited for a long time, but didn't get an answer. Suddenly, she realized the conflict between Wang Sheng and her father, and her heart filled with bitterness. Wang Sheng, we're already like this, yet you still call him Song Wugong. Can't you treat him as your father-in-law? Song Yan asked, gritting her teeth. I'm afraid Song Wugong doesn't think so, Wang Sheng said, shaking his head. Otherwise, you wouldn't be here. Song Yan was speechless. If Song Wugong really approved of Wang Sheng and Song Yan's relationship, he probably wouldn't want to kill Wang Sheng. This was a dead knot that couldn't be untied. Song Yin was stuck in the middle, and she was really in a dilemma. For your sake, I'll make an exception and give him some pointers. Seeing Song Yan's troubled expression, Wang Sheng's heart softened. He sighed and said, "But only this once. The next time we meet, I might kill him with my own hands." Chapter 543. Song Yin really didn't know how to reconcile the conflict between Wang Sheng and Song Hongda. The two of them hadn't been on good terms ever since they met. At the Land of Thousand Despair, Wang Sheng had the upper hand. However, the moment they left the Land of Thousand Despair, Wang Sheng became the one being hunted down. In short, it was a long story. But no matter what, Song Yin was already very satisfied that Wang Sheng was willing to give her some pointers. Between these two men, one was her father, the other was her man. Neither of them would back down. So what could she do? Song Yin was already pleasantly surprised that Wang Sheng had taken the initiative to take a step back. Tell him that if he wants to live, he should put down everything else and obediently treat his injuries. Even though Wang Sheng nodded, he didn't seem to want Song Wugong to be happy. He's thinking about conquering the world every day. Even if he has 10,000 pills, he'll still die. I'll relay it to him. Song Yin listened carefully, afraid that she would miss a single point. The life rejuvenation pill should be something good. Do you have one or two more? Wang Sheng asked. Hearing Wang Sheng admit that the life rejuvenation pill was something good, Song Yin finally felt more at ease. She hurriedly replied, "I have two. In the future, don't ever believe that a pill can make you reborn in a day. Not to mention bring the dead back to life." Wang Sheng nodded and said as if he was preaching, "In this world, only the right medicine can be used to cure the illness. There's no such thing as a pill that can cure all illnesses. The legends you've heard about the life rejuvenation pill are too miraculous because you don't understand how it works." Song Yin also nodded. If it were not for the fact that the life recovery pill was so famous that anyone who came over with a pill and claimed that it could cure all kinds of diseases, Song Yin would have definitely chopped off their heads with one strike of her sword. How dare they lie to High Duke Song? They must be tired of living. Wang Sheng had asked Song Hongda about his reaction after taking the pill. He didn't vomit or have diarrhea, which meant that it wasn't a powerful medicine that boosted metabolism. However, he had been sweating profusely for a few days, which meant that this was a normal drug to promote metabolism. In this world, if there was a pill that was said to be able to cure all kinds of diseases, then there could only be one principle. It could improve the physique of the person who took the pill, increase the resistance, promote metabolism, and adjust the human body to the best condition. However, this was a long-term process. It would definitely not work in a short period of time. The consequence of strengthening metabolism was that the toxins that had accumulated in the body could be slowly metabolized out. But at the same time, it was necessary to pay attention to protect the liver and kidneys and other organs so that they would not fail due to metabolism too fast. Slowly improving the body's quality, slowly healing the body's injuries, and speeding up the metabolism of toxins. This was the basic principle. This was not something that could produce immediate results. In the end, it was falsely believed that it was a divine pill that could produce immediate results. What a waste of a life-returning pill. The rejuvenation pill was able to make Song Hongda sweat profusely for a few days, but it also made him feel refreshed, which meant that it was a very effective pill. Unfortunately, he had taken it too quickly. It should have been taken over a few months, but he had swallowed it in one go, wasting at least 99% of its effects. When you go back, tell him to put everything aside and then dissolve a life-returning pill in water. It should be enough for about half a year, and keep it safe. Wang Sheng reminded Song Yin, take a few sips every morning, afternoon, and night. Not too much, and not too fast. Anything else? Song Yin asked anxiously, remembering Wang Sheng's instructions. Eat more vegetables, eat more fruits, and drink more cow and goat milk. Since he was going to give pointers, Wang Sheng no longer held back and told her the main points. Eat well and sleep well every day, especially drink more water. How could one metabolize the old if there was no replenishment or new replenishment. Eating and drinking were the most basic. Eating more of these things could help one absorb the heavy metals. According to Wang Sheng's eating method, he would have enough replenishment every day to absorb the heavy metals as body bit by bit and expel them through various channels. If he could persist like this for a year, Song Honda would probably no longer have to worry about his life. This could only metabolize the majority of the heavy metals. Whether or not it could repair the damage would depend on the efficacy of the life-returning pill and Song Honda's physical condition. If Song Honda hadn't taken some medicine that stimulated his body's potential when he was poisoned, he might have had a chance to live out his remaining years with the ability of a normal person. Hearing Wang Sheng's explanation, Song Yan's heart sank. Wang Sheng had made it clear that if he hadn't taken medicine that stimulated his potential, that was the prerequisite. However, Song Yan clearly remembered that Song Honda had been bedridden. Song Yan had planned to seek treatment from Wang Sheng when he called her back. At that time, Song Honda was already alive and kicking. It would be strange if he hadn't taken some similar medicine. What if he had taken the medicine you mentioned before? Song Yan couldn't help but ask. Wang Sheng immediately furrowed his brows. Song Yan said if, but Wang Sheng immediately knew that he must have taken it. Song Honda was indeed an ambitious person. He was so cruel to himself. No wonder he was looking for a son-in-law for Song Yan. He was probably looking for a suitable successor. Go to the Laojun temple and ask it to send an expert who has cultivated the 9 symbolic words. Wang Sheng really didn't want to save Song Honda, but Song Yan begged him like this, so Wang Sheng couldn't remain indifferent. However, Wang Sheng was definitely unwilling to save him himself. He could only point her to the Laojun temple's Taoist priest. What are the 9 symbolic words? Song Yan had clearly not heard of the 9 symbolic words and asked hurriedly. It's a Taoist magic that I created. Wang Sheng didn't hide anything and told Song Yan the truth. The army incantation has a miraculous effect on healing, detoxification, and recovery, but must be used by someone who has cultivated it. Can it make my father as good as new? Song Yan knew that Wang Sheng definitely wouldn't want to do it himself, so she didn't mention it and only asked about the effect. It can't. Wang Sheng shook his head. But if he uses it a few times a day, he might be able to live like a normal person for a few more decades. Maybe not, but who knows? I'll get it done when I get back. Song Yan immediately nodded. If you don't want to offend the Laojun temple, then don't even think about that underground palace. Wang Sheng reminded Song Yan. It's full of Laojun temple's Taoist priests. Also, when you get back, tell High Duke Song the truth. Although Wang Sheng told her the method for Song Yan's sake, it didn't mean that he would let Song Honda live an easy life. I want to see if he cares about his own face or his daughter's dignity. Song Yan recalled that Song Honda would rather take the tiger wolf medicine than let Song Yan go to Carefree City to beg Wang Sheng. Song Yan suddenly felt that her father might be biased against Wang Sheng, but that didn't mean that he wasn't a bad father. Chapter 544. Because of Song Honda, Wang Sheng was a little angry. The naked Song Yan naturally became Wang Sheng's punching bag. So, the angry Wang Sheng once again pressed Song Yan under his body. Under Song Yan's flattery, the two of them once again climbed to the peak. Wang Sheng, if. Song Yan curled up in Wang Sheng's arms and asked carefully, if I become the thing that you hate the most, will you dislike me? What kind of thing do I hate the most? Wang Sheng asked casually as he gently stroked Song Yan's smooth skin. I don't know either. Song Yan shrunk herself into Wang Sheng's arms, as if she wanted to squeeze into Wang Sheng's body. But I know, I will definitely not be the same as before. Wang Sheng lowered his head and looked at Song Yan, who was like a kitten. He couldn't help but reach out and rub her beautiful hair. He said softly, go do what you want to do. Song Yan must have said that she wanted to change because she wanted to do something that she couldn't or didn't want to do in the past. Before she met Wang Sheng, Song Yan had been oppressed and wronged for more than 10 years. Wang Sheng also hoped that Song Yan could do what she wanted to do and not be forced to do something that she didn't like. What if? Song Yan still seemed worried. What if what I do will hurt you? Do what you like to do, or do what you should do, Wang Sheng directly interrupted Song Yan's words and replied firmly. Don't worry about who it will hurt. If you treat me as your man, then don't think about these things. Even if it will hurt me, I will bear it for you. I am your man, aren't I? This time, Song Yan didn't say anything. She only hugged Wang Sheng tightly, greedily inhaling the scent of Wang Sheng's body, as if she wanted to imprint this scent into her heart. You must be careful once you leave the lands of despair. After a moment of silence, Song Yin suddenly warned Wang Sheng. As far as I know, there are at least 3 families whose second-generation heirs are already very dissatisfied with you. They will look for an opportunity to kill you at any time and any place. I suspect that the godly might prison attacked you because of the intention of some vassal state or some big family. Which 3? Wang Sheng already knew that someone wanted to kill him, so he wasn't surprised at all. However, if he knew a possible range, he would at least have a target to guard against, so he casually asked. Needless to say, the entire Dai clan wants you dead. Song Yin didn't try to hide anything, as she quickly replied. Also, the Shi clan and the Gan clan have already made it clear that they intend to kill you. Song Yin didn't seem to care much about the vassal states. When she mentioned them, she still referred to them as clans instead of the Dai state, Shi state, and Gan state. Fortunately, Wang Sheng didn't mind. It was fine as long as he knew who the target was. A few juniors from the Xia family have also expressed their dissatisfaction, but no one has made a move yet. Song Yin was also worried that Wang Sheng would be at a disadvantage, so she told him everything she knew. The other clans haven't made any moves yet, but you have to be careful too. Also, there's the biggest one, Duke Song. Wang Sheng spoke for the hesitant Song Yin. Among these people, the one who wanted Wang Sheng dead the most was probably Duke Song. I'm sorry. Song Yin apologized in a low voice. She couldn't do anything about it. She could only say that she would try her best to restrain the Song clan's men and not take the initiative to attack. However, who knew if Duke Song would appreciate it? In short, between her father and her lover, Song Yin would always be the one who was on the receiving end. Do you trust me? Wang Sheng didn't want to talk about such an unpleasant topic. He suddenly asked Song Yin a question. Of course. Song Yin answered without hesitation. Then, if I told you that there are more than 9-star origin souls in this world, would you believe me? Wang Sheng asked casually as he hugged Song Yan's slender body. How is that possible? Song Yin was shocked. She immediately raised her head and looked at Wang Sheng in shock. However, when she saw Wang Sheng's calm gaze, she suddenly realized that Wang Sheng didn't seem to be joking. Song Yin was a little stunned. Are you serious? Uh-huh. Wang Sheng replied as he lay down. At the same time, he made a nodding motion. Song Yin could see this motion, but it couldn't be considered nod. Really? Song Yin was still a little hesitant. This was completely different from what she had learned since she was young. It should be known that Wang Sheng had only been in contact with origin souls for a few years. He didn't know as much as Song Yin did. I have strange stories and anecdotes here. These things have been recorded here before. Wang Sheng took out the strange stories and anecdotes scroll he had obtained last time and showed Song Yin the records of more than 9-star origin souls. These are just legends. They might not be real. Song Yin still didn't dare to fully believe it. How is that possible? So, do you believe me? Do you trust me? Wang Sheng asked again. Without a doubt. Song Yin once again answered with certainty. What if I say there is? Wang Sheng looked at Song Yan's eyes and asked again. Song Yin clearly understood that Wang Sheng was going to teach her how to increase the level of a 6-star origin soul. And the first thing to do was whether Song Yin completely believed in Wang Sheng's words. If she couldn't even believe in a 9-star origin soul that defied common sense, then why should she believe in an increase in the level of an origin soul that defied common sense? Then there must be. Song Yin understood Wang Sheng's meaning. She closed her eyes and gave herself some confidence before replying resolutely. Wang Sheng looked at Song Yin. Song Yin looked back at Wang Sheng without a trace of guilt. She then asked firmly, There must be, right? Of course. Wang Sheng gave Song Yin a reassuring smile and strengthened her confidence. I've seen it with my own eyes. He's an expert who's at least in the 11th stage. Song Yin almost cried out in surprise. She reacted in time and covered her cherry lips with her hand, her face full of shock. Don't doubt it. Wang Sheng continued to strengthen Song Yan's confidence. I can even tell you his identity. He's the bodyguard I found in Carefree City. He's a legendary red card killer. Song Yan had never seen old Taoist Ling Su before, but she had heard the rumors. Casually killing 3 experts at the peak of the 8th stage was just the tip of the iceberg. Suddenly, Song Yan felt that everything seemed perfect. Even if she had been plotted against and fused with a 6-star origin soul, as long as she met Wang Sheng, it might not be her misfortune. Remember what I said? Wang Sheng said to Song Yan. A 6-star frost tortoise. The 6th stage is far from the end. The ultimate origin soul of a tortoise is called the black tortoise. Chapter 545. Telling Song Yin the method to raise her spirit was Wang Sheng's promise in the past. The last time when Song Yin was in the 5th degree realm, Wang Sheng wanted to fulfill this promise and not meet Song Yin ever again. After all, Song Yin was stuck between him and High Duke Song, so it was better not to meet her to avoid the awkwardness. If everything had not happened earlier, Wang Sheng would have told Song Yin the specific method after entering the small house. But if it really came to that stage, this would probably be the last time Wang Sheng and Song Yin met. But Song Yin did not play her cards according to common sense. From the start of the meeting, she had already planned to give herself to Wang Sheng. And as expected, Wang Sheng also fell into her trap. Now the both of them had an inextricable relationship. Under such circumstances, Wang Sheng spared no effort in guiding Song Yin. Wasn't it just to raise her spirit? The most important thing was the confidence that she could break through and nothing else. The Black Tortoise faction is also known as Black Underworld, Northern Dark. The Black Tortoise's 7 constellations include Wood Centipede, Golden Bullnyo, Earth Bat of Girl, Sun Rat of Emptiness, Moon Swallow of Peril, Fire Boar of Room, and Water Centipede of Wall. Wang Sheng listed out the names of the Black Tortoise's 7 constellations in the north of the 28 constellations, and then based on his understanding from his memory, he started to explain the characteristics of these 7 constellations to Song Yin. Your spirit will change according to this order. After you have completed all the 7 constellations, the final spirit will be able to raise to the Black Tortoise, which is a combination of turtle and snake. After explaining the characteristics of the 7 constellations, Wang Sheng told Song Yin the rules of the changes, which was the key to raising her spirit. 7 constellations changes, in addition to the Black Tortoise's final form, there are a total of 8, which means I have to raise to the 14th degree realm. Song Yin was dumbstruck. Even if she already believed in the existence of spirit that surpassed 9 stars, but facing this kind of thing which had far surpassed her understanding, she still could not maintain her composure. If it wasn't for the fact that Wang Sheng had already said that he had seen a real 11th degree realm expert, Song Yin would have suspected that Wang Sheng was lying to her. Isn't the higher the better? Wang Sheng asked in a provocative manner. You always thought that your 6-star source spirit was low level, but now that I've given you a chance to reach 14 stars, are you still afraid? I just find it unbelievable. Song Yin was truly shocked. Even now, she still couldn't calm down. From Wang Sheng's perspective, he lacked confidence. Trust me, billions of people believed in this change. Wang Sheng had no choice but to use the same words he had used to persuade the girl in his dreams to bolster Song Yin's confidence. Really, when Song Yin heard this number, she was no longer in disbelief. Although she still had some doubts in her mind, her heart was already much more resolute. Then what do you think a phoenix is? Wang Sheng changed the topic, but he still had the same goal in mind, to make Song Yin more confident. Isn't it a super origin soul? Speaking of the phoenix, Song Yin became more and more convinced of the existence of an origin soul that surpassed 9 stars. The phoenix itself was a legend. It definitely surpassed all the origin souls in this world. Her family's records also determined that the phoenix was not a fake story, but a real existence. The original body of the phoenix is just a mediocre sparrow. Wang Sheng smiled, revealing the secret in his heart for the first time. Although he was telling Song Yin the secret of the phoenix, Wang Sheng's heart suddenly flew to the girl in his dreams. But there was still Song Yin in front of him. Wang Sheng really didn't know what kind of dilemma he was in. The phoenix was the straw that broke the camel's back. Although it wasn't appropriate to describe Song Yan's doubts, Song Yin no longer doubted whether it was possible or not. Her thoughts had already turned to how to change the 7 constellations of the Black Tortoise. It sounded like the 7 constellations of the Black Tortoise were 7 different species. It was different from the common sense of a source spirit, but this was no longer a problem. Could it be that the 9 sons of Wang Sheng's dragon were the same species? At this point, the meeting between Wang Sheng and Song Yin came to an end. Song Yin also knew that parting was imminent. She ignored the pain of a broken melon and forcefully endured it and made love with Wang Sheng again. Only then did she get up to tidy up. In front of Wang Sheng, Song Yin changed her young girl's hairstyle into a woman's bun and put on her own clothes. Then, like an obedient little wife, she helped Wang Sheng put on his protective clothes. Seeing the incomparably beautiful and shy Song Yin, who had experienced Wang Sheng's nourishment, Wang Sheng felt a burst of displeasure when he thought about how Duke Song had searched all over the world for a suitable son-in-law for Song Yin. Go back and tell Duke Song that if you want to live, don't even think about conquering the world. Wang Sheng didn't hide his displeasure at all. He fiercely warned Song Yin, also, if he dares to find a man for you again, I definitely won't let him go. Tell him I said it. Song Hongda was an ambitious person, and ambitious people always had lofty ambitions. However, Song Hongda had experienced life and death once. He didn't know if he could still disregard his own life for his lofty ambitions. This kind of thing also needed to be done in one go. If he cherished his own life for the first time, there would be a second and a third time. Therefore, in order to survive, Song Hongda would definitely accept Wang Sheng's request and stay away from the center of power. Making a guy with a strong desire for power stay away from the center of power was already a cruel torture for him. You are my only man. This will never change in this lifetime. Song Yin hugged Wang Sheng again and said, but you may never become my husband in this lifetime. Wang Sheng really wanted to give Song Yin some promises, but his lips moved a few times, but he couldn't say a word. He couldn't confidently say that he would keep his word like he did when he gave pointers to an original soul. Therefore, he could only look at Song Yan's resentful eyes and reluctantly say goodbye. This time, Wang Sheng and Song Yin stayed alone in the small house for a full 12 hours. However, when Song Yin and Wang Sheng walked out of the house and saw Song Yan's guards, they didn't seem surprised at all. It was as if all of this was only natural. Especially when the guards saw the obvious change in Song Yan's hairstyle, there was no doubt on their faces. This made Wang Sheng admire them. These people were really loyal to Song Yin. It should be known that these experts were personally trained by Song Hongda for more than 10 years. Now, even though they knew that Song Hongda was looking for a husband for Song Yin, and even though they knew that Wang Sheng and Song Yin had already gotten together, they didn't see it. It could only be said that the object of their loyalty had changed from Song Hongda to Song Yin. I will do what I like. Before leaving, Song Yin threw herself into Wang Sheng's arms again and said to Wang Sheng, maybe one day, I will bring the experts of the Song Kingdom to take you back. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.